Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the Historic Federal Building for the purpose of receiving presentations on certain fiscal year 2026 department budgets.
Thank you. Good evening, excuse me, and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for April 2nd, 2025. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's budget presentations. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the presentation they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which presentation you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which presentation you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our budget presentation. And I do see that the city manager just joined.
Yes, I'm on.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to our budget presentation. So Mayor Kavanaugh, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, well, thank you very much. Well, here we are to kick it all off again for yet another year. Before we get started, we've got a few tonight, and we'll just go through one at a time. Just from a standpoint of public input, we'll just go through each presentation, and then after that presentation, I'll open it up for public input, and then after public input, we'll bring it back to the table for discussion. I do want to make sure that we're all clear as a council on the process for holding anything back. If we want to hold anything, we did get the memo from City Attorney Brumwell about the options that we had before us. We have generally in the past if a single member wants to hold anything back, that member will bring that up at the moment of the budget hearing and the things that are going on. If there are 4 of us at least who agree, then that can be held till the final budget hearing. So everybody's clear on that. And if there are any questions, I'm sure we can ask them as we go through. Okay, well, we will have plenty of time to talk more. So I will turn it over to our first participant, City Manager's Office, and Corey Burbach is here with us.
Happy budget season.
Thank you.
Corey Burbach, Assistant City Manager. As you heard, we also have the City Manager, Mike Van Milligan, on the phone, and we'll also be joined by our previously Director of Strategic Partnerships and now Consultant, Terry Goodman, on the phone this evening to help with our presentation. So we are excited to kick off the departmental presentations this evening, and the purpose of the City Manager's Office, the reason we exist, is to be a conduit between all of you and the hundreds of city staff that work to implement your vision every day. So in the City Manager's Office, we communicate your vision and mission to staff, and you can see our City Manager's Office mission here, but it's really to plan, organize, and manage all the day-to-day operations of the city so that we can provide the best quality service with the financial resources that we have available to our residents and businesses and visitors every day in Dubuque. You all have identified this vision and this philosophy of creating an equitable community of choice and an organization of choice. And this is what we use to guide our work every day. A lot of what you're going to hear from Gina and I this evening focuses on the community side, on creating an equitable community of choice and what that looks like and the priorities. And you're also going to hear from me and from some of our other departments this evening about how there's been a particular focus on creating an equitable organization of choice as well. And these are the 5 pillars that we lean on as we do that work. We have one new awesome face in our department this year. That's our Climate Action Coordinator, Michelle Kim, who is in the audience, fresh off of the Growing Sustainable Community Conference. And we are very excited to have her on our team. I also want to note that while she has changed roles, Terry Goodman is still part of our office and very much involved in the day-to-day communications that happen in order for us to be able to talk with our state and federal partners and do the work that's necessary there to achieve your goals. This is our existing city manager's office, FTE, and you can see here that we currently have an ICMA fellow position that has actually been vacant for 2 years now, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit, as well as our Director of Strategic Partnerships. That is currently a .75 FTE that's vacant, and then our Sustainable Dubuque intern is also currently vacant, and that's also a part-time position. There is one improvement package recommended that I'm going to talk you through in a little bit, but this is what it would change in our organizational chart. It would move us from that 10.42 FTE equivalent to a total of 9.67 FTEs in the city manager's office. And again, we'll talk through these changes that are highlighted in yellow when we get to the improvement packages section. I'm going to start with sharing some highlights from our administrative and our legislative and partnership actions. And I just have to tell you, when I put these next few slides together, the faces on these slides made me smile so much. We have done a year's worth of people work. Not that we don't always do it, but in the past 18 months in the city of Dubuque, you all have made a priority things like making sure we are supporting our existing workforce, that we are recruiting the most qualified workforce that we can, and that we're supporting our employees when they show up at the city of Dubuque every day. So in the past 12-ish months, the city manager's office has really been leading that work in partnership with the Human Resources Department. You're going to hear more from Shelley Stickford in a little while. You'll hear a little bit of overlap between our presentations, because I don't think there's a day that I spend where I'm not spending some time with HR, and that's very intentionally. But here's a couple of things that I wanted to highlight under the administrative branch this year. We've spent a lot of time, and I am very grateful for your financial support of the work we've done with a company called Vital Solutions. About 2 years ago, we pooled professional development funding from a couple of fiscal years to be able to put out an RFP that said we want to work with a consultant to expedite our organizational change work around two things: becoming a more high-performing organization and a more equitable organization. And we've contracted with a group called Vital Solutions out of Florida. We started with a contract to work with just our department managers. And our department managers very quickly said, we need more of this work. And so due to some savings in other areas, you all approved an amendment in the current fiscal year so that we could expand that work to leadership team. In the past year, we've done a couple of things with Vital Solutions. Department managers and leadership team have gone through a number of day-long workshops and retreats where we're working as a group on something that we call We Work. And We Work is the work that it takes us in our teams to improve the culture at the city of Dubuque. Then, all of those employees also have access to individual executive level coaching through Vital Solutions. And that part of the work we call the Me Work. We can't be out there working as a team if every individual that's part of our leadership team isn't also thinking about the way they lead and work. And so we have seen some pretty phenomenal responses and changes in the way we work through that executive coaching, which is exciting. We're currently at the stage where we have gone away and we've learned a lot of things, and we're very excited. And the folks that work with me know it. When I do this work, I quote Brene Brown quite a bit. And she's got a quote that says, only 10% of organizations operationalize their values into teachable and observable behaviors that are used to train their employees and measure success. So now, as a group, we've said, here's what we want to stand for at the city of Dubuque. And now the work that we're doing is around aligning language, performance appraisals, universal competencies, to make sure that we're really clear with every employee at the city of Dubuque. Here's how we say we live our values every day, and the things and the way that you are evaluated are going to mirror that. So that's the work that's happening right now. You all have been supportive as part of that top priority of workforce retention, of us doing work to implement department manager annual appraisals, and those appraisals will include a 360 evaluation for our department managers so that we're closing that feedback loop for all of our employees, and we're just getting ready to start that work now. And then I mentioned that I do a lot of this work with human resources. We also have a group that we call the core team, and that is made up of staff from the city manager's office, human resources, legal, fire, Office of Shared Prosperity and Neighborhood Support, and I will probably miss someone, so I'll remember it and come back to it. But that group meets on a monthly basis to really make sure that we're measuring and paying attention to the quantitative and qualitative data that we have that tells us what the culture of the city of Dubuque looks like. So in the past year, we've done a couple things that are really exciting and I'm really proud of. The first is the launch of our employee resource groups. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see a photo of our leadership team from our Women Rising Together. We currently have 4 approved employee resource groups, and we have 2 more applications pending, which I am excited to continue to support. And then we've also rolled out mentoring and job shadow programs. And I know in my time with the city that many employees have had the opportunity to job shadow or mentor in the past, but it's often because of who you know or who you find that you have a connection with in the workplace. And that means that employees who might not feel that connection right away, especially as we aim to recruit and hire a more diverse workforce, miss out on those opportunities because we haven't made it very transparent how you get involved. And so Kelly Larson in our Human Resources Department has done a really great job of formalizing those processes and making sure that for both the mentee and the mentor, we're advertising those opportunities to grow our own talent in the city of Dubuque. One of the things that I talk about every year when I'm up here is our annual employee survey. And every year since 2018, when we have completed that survey, one of the top 3 priorities that we walk away with is that employees feel like we could do a better job communicating. And communicating means something different to every employee. There's one-way communication, there's two-way communication, there's how we handle conflict in the workplace. But we've really focused on those employee feedback loops in the last year, and I want to share with you a few examples of how we've done that. We continue to use the annual employee survey and the biannual employee wellness survey, which looks at the physical and mental health of our employees, as a way to gather good data. We have a pretty amazing annual employee recognition event that is coming up again in May, and that's a chance for us to celebrate. We all work really fast most days, and we don't take the time to celebrate the success of our employees. So we revamped that last year, and our employee recognition committee has done a great job of bringing some additional engagement and education components to that event. We relaunched a quarterly event that we call the City Manager's Huddle Up Hour. And this event, my understanding is used to exist many years ago at the city. And it came back because for many of our employees, they don't get the chance to have FaceTime with the city manager and I. They might see us at a council meeting, they might see us passing in the street, but there's not that interaction where they know how valued they are. They have the chance to ask us questions. So Mike and I are hosting quarterly huddle up hours now. We target very specific groups. There's a different theme for each one, and they are capped at about 10 to 15 employees, and it's a chance for us to really sit down and dialogue with them. And I think we have learned just as much as the employees who've participated in those. We also have done things like restructure our weekly department manager meetings, continue to host a weekly employee webinar that's available to all city employees, and the intent of that webinar is to share information. And then we have added biweekly human resources updates and spirit times. Again, the theory here is same message, different modes, so that employees are receiving the information in a way that's relevant to them. Lots of that information this year has been about the work being done on the comp and class study and the implementation of that study. I'm actually going to put a pin in this slide and tell you that the Human Resources Department is going to cover this topic very fully during their presentation, and I will be happy to support them in answering questions. And then there's sort of some miscellaneous things that we do in the administrative function that are very important to the work of our community. We are this week launching our new citizen response management software, Report to DBQ, and that is the tool that any resident can submit a request or comment at any time, so you'll be hearing more about that in the next couple of weeks. We have launched a data governance committee. That committee is led by Braden Daniels in our Office of Shared Prosperity, so you'll hear more from him. But he's been working with IT, the city manager's office, and others to figure out ways that we can work smarter using the data that we have access to. And then one of the things that I most enjoy about this position is I get to work with a lot of different groups focused on professional development. So we have revamped our new employee orientation. We are in the process of launching a new supervisor orientation that you'll hear a little bit more about tonight. And then I get the chance to work with our high-performing government ambassadors, and this group goes out and works with departments to improve process, to improve communication, to figure out what the outcomes are that we're looking for in our programs and services, and figure out how to improve those. And they work with all of our departments on that. One of the themes that you'll hear from every department that's up in front of you is that it's not just our emergency responders who are very important and lead our work in public safety, but every department at the City of Dubuque does something that increases the safety and the health of all of our residents. So I want to highlight those in the city manager's office. The first is, going back to that coordination role, we work across departments to achieve public safety priorities, whether that's responding in an actual EOC event, doing the SOPs that prepare us for those, all of those types of behind-the-scenes work. And then second, I serve on the city's Emergency Preparedness Committee. That committee does things like make sure all of our leadership team is up to date in their NIM certifications. We host tabletop drills, at least 2 annually. That's what you see in that bottom photo. And the thing that I tell people about this work is it's really important not just when the tornado hits or when the flood hits. It's also important when the lights go out in council chambers during a council meeting, right? We like those baby emergencies that let us practice so our muscle memory kicks in real emergency situations. Our team is also responsible for the strategic partnerships work that is critical to us being able to deliver on big ticket items and policy in our community. So up here you see the key federal grant awards that we were able to secure in the last year. We've secured 22 grants in 24 months, totaling $128 million. That is funds that is not put on our individual property taxes, our utility rates. We're often able to leverage those funds as there's match required or bring in additional partners, but that's really how we're able to achieve some of the big projects that you see up there, like the RAISE grant, like the work that we are doing at Comiskey that you'll hear about in individual presentations. And we have shifted this work this year, as you all have talked about in many meetings, to make sure that we are being nimble to the state and federal changes that we see, and that we maintain our integrity and keep the priorities of our community in the front of our mind, but that we also make sure that we're aligning our language and priorities with the shifts that we're seeing happen at the state and federal level. And our approach remains the same. You've heard this said many times, but the work that we do is grounded in people planning and partnerships. And the slide up here has a whole bunch of acronyms, but here's what's important about this. We are not waiting until we're at the stage where have our hand out for funding before we're talking to a partner. The work that we do in understanding their goals, in talking with them about the impact of legislation, all of those things are just as important in order to get to that stage where we're able to capitalize on funding. And we are working with the new administration, with our public and private sector partners, so that we can manage the risks as we see cost shifts, project delays, or any other thing that might come, so that we're minimizing that risk in Dubuque. As I mentioned, we do this keeping the priorities of our residents in mind, and you set those priorities through your goal setting each year. So this slide shows you, since 2020, how we have been able to secure funding for things that you have identified as a top or high priority. You can see that currently we are prioritizing air service development, infrastructure resilience, and making sure that we are shovel ready when that funding becomes available so that we can continue to capitalize on whatever opportunities are out there. These are the awards that we're currently in the process of contracting, and the thing that I want to highlight here is, given the communication that we're hearing from our partners now, we are not guaranteeing a project until we have a contract in hand. So these are the projects that we are currently working actively every day with our partners to take them across the finish line and get started. On the bottom of the screen, 6 through 9, you see submitted applications that we have sent in that we are waiting to hear either whether they're funded or whether there are changes in priorities to those programs. As we look towards the future, we have laid a really solid foundation that we will build on in the next fiscal year. We have, again, said this vital training is working. We're seeing the difference. And so this summer, we will roll that out to all of our city employees, and there'll be an all-employee and a supervisor version of that. We will continue to offer executive coaching, annual appraisals, and evaluations to our department managers because we know that those are the cultural architects within each team every day. As I mentioned, we are rolling out new supervisor orientation and department manager onboarding programs. And then this is a big bullet, there's a lot in this line, that we will remain flexible and responsive to the changing state and federal legislative landscape. The impact of the city manager's office on our community is about $512,000 net operating property tax support, and that equates to $6.76 to the average homeowner in Dubuque. We have one recommended improvement package on the administration side of the house, and that's for a restructure of the city manager's office. So the net property tax impact of this package is $0. We are shifting resources to meet the needs that we see. The Director of Strategic Partnerships, which is currently 0.75, is recommended to go up to 1 FTE and stay in the city manager's office. In order to fund that, we are eliminating the ICMA fellow, which is 1 FTE, and combining it with our grant analyst that currently exists, so 2 positions going to 1 combined. And then making up the remainder of the cost needed for that transition, $15,171 in savings from our education and conference line items.
Gina Bell, Director of Sustainability. I'm just going to cover a couple of slides and then I'll do the full presentation in a minute. So this is an item that I brought last year and it was pushed to this year. It is being recommended at a non-recurring package at a net cost of $0 due to savings in administration, a grant that we received, and vacancy from the prior climate action coordinator. But I want to remind everyone that at the core, sustainability work is focused on making everyone's lives better. And as practitioners of sustainability, we analyze and reimagine complex and oftentimes overlapping systems to find solutions. And these are some of the most challenging times that we have. And navigating this complexity requires skills in change management, negotiation, policy development, program design, communication, and it also requires the ability to analyze data and tell a story with that data, and perhaps a tad of futurism. And these are all skills that our current climate action coordinator brings to the city and to the sustainability office. And it's a really good deal. And we're professionals at adapting. So while we would love to see this be a recurring position, we will figure it out, be it year to year or a longer term commitment. And our capital improvement project in the sustainability office is it happens every 3 years. It is the greenhouse gas inventory and some additional climate action planning. So updating our inventory allows us to continue to monitor our progress towards our 50% by 2030 goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And it informs ongoing actions of how we're gonna keep getting these decreases to adapt and mitigate to a changing climate for our residents. Thank you.
Yeah, as Corey comes back up, Eric, can you flip the switch so we get the non-live feed on our screens, please? That way we can see the slides the whole time. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks, Corey.
In the city manager's office, we have a few performance measures. The first is how we are doing in terms of meeting your goal of financially responsible, high-performing city organization. This is a slide that you've seen before in the city manager and Jenny's presentation. But what I'll reiterate here is that as we continue to see the cost of equipment and services increase, as we continue to try and maintain our infrastructure and not push that down the road, as we seek to be able to pay our employees a competitive wage so that we can attract the best employees, we maintain that we are the lowest rate that you see on the screen as compared to other large metro cities in Iowa. Another way we measure performance is around the outcome that you've identified under that same goal, which is that we maintain an efficient citizen response rate. When a resident calls any of our departments, we want to make sure that we are getting back to them as quickly and efficiently and completely as possible. So on the left-hand side, we measure across the organization the percent of our resident complaints that are resolved within 10 days. We have different service level expectations depending on the service type, but this is the average. And you can see that that number is decreasing slightly. And then on the right-hand side, you can see number of days to resolve resident issues in the city manager's office specifically. We shoot to be under 7 days on that, and we've seen an uptake this year to 8.6. Behind this data, we've been able to dig in and figure out what's happening, why are these numbers not going in the, while not significant, not going in the direction we want this year. What we found as we've done that transition to report to DBQ is that many of our service request types that are very specific and very quick to respond to, think I need a new recycling cart delivered. We're actually having departments that have much more specialized software that is taking those requests out of the system completely. And so the items that are left in our CRM system are actually the complex, sticky ones that take a little bit longer, that take multiple departments. So we think we've been able to do some things with the new software that are going to improve workflows and communication internally. And I think next year I'll be coming back to you telling you that those numbers are going the right way again. And then the last performance measure that we track in the city manager's office aligns with your outcome of hiring and retaining a highly skilled city workforce that reflects the Dubuque community. We measure that by looking at our leadership team demographics. Leadership team is a group of about 100 folks that are the next in line under our department directors. And we look at percent female and percent non-white. And in both of these areas, you can see that we are not quite where we want to be. So we are looking at things like how we advertise, recruit, and hire. And we're also looking at what the career ladders within the organization look like so that we can make progress on these numbers. And with that, I will turn it over to the Sustainability Department.
Good evening again, Gina Bell, Sustainability. This is about our public safety offering as a sustainability department. And I'm going to read a quote from the president of the Center of Climate and Energy Solutions, which is, with the clean energy economy driving jobs and opportunity, even as wildfires, hurricanes, and other extreme weather disasters threaten communities around the country, it's never been clearer that America's prosperity and security depend on addressing climate and energy challenges. And so our sustainability efforts not only protect us from economic shocks, but they strengthen our resilience to other threats, such as severe weather. And by promoting sustainability, we create safer, healthier, and more productive environments. This means protecting and preserving our air quality and water quality rather than to continue to degrade them. And at its core, sustainability means ensuring our ability to continue and thrive. So our biggest highlight from the year was that it was the hottest year ever on record. But this is not the highlight that we want to go for. So some of our other highlights, and Corey alluded to these, were we did a lot of grant writing, securing grants, and we don't have a lot to show for it other than perhaps a signed contract or frozen funds. But a lot of those help us implement our climate action plan. So energy efficiency, conservation block grant. We did also do some work related to researching a science-based target, which you all heard about in our last work session. We did the Youth Climate Action Fund. So this was a really exciting one. It was private sector funding. We received a $50,000 grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies. We gave out micro grants to youth throughout the community, and then we were able to compete for an additional $100,000, which we are in the process of granting out. It's really inspiring to see youth get involved. Coming off of the conference, we heard a lot about engaging youth, and so we will continue that work. We did start our branching out initiative, tree canopy work, and that will continue to grow as it's able. And I was personally able to facilitate a group of Midwestern cities and counties. So in October, at our national conference, we had 65 people representing all the middle states, and we got together to look at how we can, as a region, address some of our issues. And then We know, and you've heard me say this before, that 66% of our emissions come from buildings. So we really want to focus on energy efficiency in buildings. And we started this year with our own city buildings. So we started entering data into Energy Star, and that's going to take me to our next slide, which doesn't maybe mean that much, but we got to see that City Hall energy use increased by 13% since 2020, and we've spent $11,500 and some dollars more in energy bills in 2024 compared to 2020. And our greenhouse gas intensity has increased by 10%. So these are not trends that we want to go towards. And another look at City Hall is this usage by month. But what this is it's giving us data to then make informed decisions. What buildings are we going to address first, and what problems are we going to address? And so I don't have a slide for it, but the annex, when we compare it to other buildings of like size and use, including sort of all of the computer usage, it uses almost 50% more energy than other buildings of same size and purpose. So that seems like a really easy place to save some money if we start addressing the energy efficiency of that building. Okay, some easier things to look at. So additional highlights include our subnational diplomacy work with our City Forward partner, Hermosillo, Mexico. We offered them brownfield support of how to work on brownfields, and then they offered us electric vehicle and fleet conversion support. Unfortunately, the program has been eliminated, but we got some good information and got to have a really lovely exchange while it was available. We've had successful grant collaborations and preparation, as I mentioned. And while we might not have a lot to show for it, what we do have are those relationships and partnerships that we've already discussed. So as we move forward in this work, that is already that groundwork is already laid. And then we did apply, with help from lots of people, for a direct pay tax credit. So this is a tax credit that we can get back for energy efficiency projects that we've done. So for solar panels at the airport, and there's another one that I'm not recalling right now. But this can help offset costs for us. And then our future work involves a lot of the same. We're going to continue to implement the Climate Action Plan. We want to up our community engagement. We think that's an easy win in the coming year. And we also are looking inward, as I mentioned, with the city energy use, but also we're forming an internal green team. So this is something that existed. We're bringing it back. We've got folks from lots of different departments represented, and they're going to help inform how we at the city can continue to improve efficiencies in our work. And the Youth Climate Action Fund. Our general consistent body of work includes these things. So the 50% by 2030 Climate Action Plan, our Resiliency Commission, they continue to focus on implementation, and they also hear from different city departments and help support their work and moving forward initiatives that relate to resiliency and sustainability. And they also score our Sustainable Dubuque grants. 181 grants of the Sustainable Dubuque grants were given to date. This is separate from our Youth Climate Action Fund grants that we're giving. And almost $300,000 have been invested into our community to do sustainable grants, which is really exciting, since 2013, not last year. And then Green Iowa AmeriCorps, we have 2 members this year. They help support the office. They focus on energy efficiency and housing. And they've provided a lot of support to our youth climate action work, as well as doing a lot of different research for a variety of information polls that we have. So they're great. And then the Growing Sustainable Communities Conference. It's mere hours over, but 300 people just gathered in Dubuque for the last 3 days for learning and partnerships. And Julie Kronlagi at Travel Dubuque did a quick calculation for us after the conference, and she offered that the local economic impact of this conference this year was $126,743. That's using a calculator that they use with the travel industry. So a big boost to our economy in the last 3 days, which is exciting, as well as all of the things that we learned. Okay, a little bit more about our climate action plan, because Why not? So we will continue to explore and pursue our goals and strategies and tactics laid out in the 50% by 2030 plan. And a commitment to sustainability and climate adaptation and clean energy is crucial to our community's future. These initiatives are not just about the environment, but they create healthier, more resilient, and economically vibrant communities. They attract new businesses, new workers, new families, young workers, and they protect those already here from an uncertain future. And by reducing emissions, investing in energy, renewable energy, and adapting to the impacts of climate change, Dubuque can mitigate future financial and environmental risks, improve air quality, expand affordable housing, increase food security, diversify transportation options, create competitive jobs, and protect critical infrastructure from extreme weather events. The work is essential to ensuring sustainable and thriving future for Dubuque and its residents. And up on the slide, you'll just see those are two snippets from a survey that was done talking about how employers want their employees want their employers to take climate action, specifically this employee wanting their employers to take climate action, as well as younger respondents are really seeing that climate change is an issue that has to be addressed, and they want to go to places that are thinking about it. Our performance measures. So this is Sustainable Dubuque Grants. As you saw earlier slide, we've given almost $300,000 away. We have a target of funding 85% of the grants that we get. And I realized as I looked at this slide that the graph doesn't make any sense. So we're at about 60%, which is not reflective of this pie chart. So I will get a better graphic next time. So we're on our way, but we want to get to 85%. That might just take more funding, which is not a part of this budget ask. Our next performance measure, our greenhouse gas reduction. You have seen many, many slides about this, but we're at a 34% reduction as of 2022, and we'll hopefully measure it again and keep working towards the 50% by 2030, which is in 5 years. And then this is a new performance measure for us. The goal is a 40% urban tree canopy cover for the city. And what this map is showing, we're at about a 27% coverage. And I pulled people who have requested trees from our Branching Out initiative portal. And so there is this possibility, you can see sort of in this downtown track, that there are there's a lack of trees, and we certainly can increase the canopy there. But as the program continues, we will be able to update with better data than just the requests. Thank you.
All right, well, Corey and Gina, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So first, we are in a public hearing to consider the city manager office's budget. Do we have any public input on this evening? Seeing none here, do we have anything virtually?
Nothing virtually, but there was written input submitted by the Resilient Community Advisory Commission included with the agenda item.
All right, thank you, Adrian. All right, back to the table then for discussion. Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. So this is a money question, so maybe I'm looking at the employee expense, and even though it was mentioned that our authorized FTE is almost one position lower, we're actually 11% higher in the employee expense. I was just wondering if someone could tell me some of the factors involved in this elevated condition.
Good evening, Jennifer Larson, Chief Financial Officer. As it was mentioned in Monday night's presentation, the City Council previously authorized the classification and compensation study. So that implementation is part of the fiscal year 26 recommended budget. So you're seeing that implementation cost in this budget, as well as a 3% recommendation for an increase in non-represented employees. So although they had a reduction in FTEs, those other cost increases is resulting in the 11% increase.
I see. I mean, the classification implementation has a huge effect on this department. And I was looking through, by far the most tonight, and then by far I mean, beating almost every other section, right? Every other department does not have this kind of impact of the classification implementation, right?
Jenny is correct that that is one of the factors you'll see in every department. The other factor in the city manager's office is that we are eliminating a position that is much lower on the pay scale than the position that we are bringing up to a full FTE, and also adding benefits for that position, which is part of the story.
So those are the two parts of the story. All right, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Farmer.
Is Terry Goodman still on the line? If I could just ask a question, is this the right time to do that? Okay. So you mentioned that we had 22 grants in 24 months, and kudos for that one. Is it possible just to kind of get a current update, if you will, on the status of some of these contracts and some of the grants?
I can certainly share some of that information with you. I think everyone knows that the grant we've been working on most diligently is the RAISE grant, which we were awarded. We are waiting to receive the new template from the Trump administration for the funding agreement, which is the final step in getting a grant from Washington, actually having the funds released. And we're working on that. And I'm actually in Washington right now. And I'm here for another meeting, but I'm going over to see our congressional staff tomorrow, because we found out today that when senators from West Virginia called a DOT, those templates were sent out immediately to other grantees. So we're going to see if we can't have some help from our partners in Washington. That's one grant. The other grant that's pending is called a SMART grant, but it is not the SMART grant that we're thinking of that Chandra Ravada is managing for AI in our intersections and in our street lights, et cetera, or in our traffic signals, et cetera. This is a SMART grant that was a battery recycling facility at the landfill. That one, the Department of Energy has not fully hired staff yet for their department, and so they are asking us to wait. They're going to let us know, and that's where we are on that grant. The other is a CFI grant, we call it, the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant from the Department of Transportation, and those are 5 EV charging stations. And those, we've been told by our members of Congress, that was a $2.5 million grant, that those are not favored by the new administration, electric charging stations. So while we've not been told we're not getting it, we've been told not to expect it. But I don't think anyone knows right now what's happening in Washington every day from day to day. So I say we wait until we hear directly from the Department of Transportation on that. In addition, we have the second half of Comiskey Park, the Phase 2 grant to finish up Comiskey Park. I've spoken, and so has Marie Ware, spoken to the folks in Washington, but also to their conduit. Those dollars flow through the Iowa DNR. Many federal grants flow through the state, just like our RAISE grant will flow through the Iowa Department of Transportation and Ames. This funding from the Park Service, National Park Service, flows from them in Washington through Des Moines, through the DNR to Dubuque. Spoken to Jessica in Des Moines on that, and she said we're waiting for people to get in place. When the last I spoke with Andy Seth, there were no staff in the National Park Service offices yet. There are new staff coming in, so we're still in a transition of government, and so that has slowed the Comiskey Park grant down. The Department of Justice grants for the police department, I'm following up on this week. And I think that's it right now. So we have the RAISE grant, charging and fueling infrastructure grant, the Comiskey Park grant, we have the SMART grant for the Battery Recycling Center, and we have Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act grant that we're waiting on. Now, we do have other grants submitted that we have not heard anything on, but we're waiting to see if they're going to be funded. That would be the high strength waste receiving and storage. Now, that was it's called a community project, formerly called an earmark. And because we have a continuing resolution in Congress, all of those community projects fall out. But we have been asked by Congresswoman Henson's staff to resubmit, and if they would pass a real budget this year, later this year. And Darren has filled out that form that has been submitted, and the Congresswoman is committed to helping us to secure that grant if we have budget passed this year in Congress. But the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling Swiffer from EPA, the Brownfield Assessment Grant from EPA, and the low no emission grant from for minibuses, those are all hanging fire, as we say. Now, again, we're going to be planning. I am planning with city or with the Chamber of Commerce a trip to DC this year. All of these departments are on our list for visits when we travel to Washington with whomever is going, the chamber and city leadership. So this is our homework this year, is to try to continue to work with our partners in Washington, D.C. To follow up on these unfulfilled grant awards that we've received, the 8 that we have unfulfilled, and the 4 that are hanging fire, as I say. They're not decided yet. Does that answer your question, Councilwoman Farber?
Yes, it does, and thank you so much for your homework, and for your actions, and for the fact that is so top of mind for you to work on behalf of the city, because none of this would be moving forward without your courage and conviction and all the time you spend with the partners that we have at the federal and the state level. So thank you very much, and this is just a great list for us, and we hope that we have some results soon and some funding to get the shovel-ready projects in route. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I do want to thank the mayor and Councilwoman Farber and Councilwoman Wethel and all council members, but recently having gone to DC and meeting with some of these department staff that are there face to face makes a huge difference, because at the end of the day, it's human relationships that make these things go forward, these projects go forward, these grants go forward. So we have to stay present and known out there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Rousseau.
Thank you. Terry, as long as you're on the line, what about the USDA grant for the branching out program?
Well, I followed up on that, and I was told, well, unless they tell you you're not getting it, you have it. Now, Justin and I meet weekly yet with Andy Seth, our grant writer in Washington, D.C., on some of these grants, and we can follow what's happening around the country on these grants with other cities. What we found, Councilwoman Roussel, is that we have communities that received their grants from USDA, but the money was pushed out or moved through a nonprofit environmental group. So, for example, we learned that Decorah, whose grant was funded, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I understand from both Andy Seth, but also from Gina Bell, their grant was funded by the National Audubon Society or Foundation. I'm sorry, the Arbor Day Foundation, and those funds were cut off. But as far as I know, and Gina would know more, when our funds, when our requisite check was in process, it was funded. I mean, we were able to draw money down in our grant account. So at this point in time, we're moving forward positively with that grant. Unless Gina has some other news, that's what I know.
I will just add that yesterday, 2 days ago, we got an email from our program manager at U.S. Forest Service who said there's no updates. We're working with her to translate some of what's in our current contract to potential wording for a future contract. No guarantees, but what our understanding is, we have to perform what's currently in our signed contract or we are in breach of contract. So we are moving forward with it, cautiously optimistic that our next drawdown will come.
Thank you.
And just to close that conversation, this has never happened before, where one administration makes a grant award and then the next comes back in and questions or changes it. And of course, in this case, the reason for that is because there have been such a flurry of executive orders, and one of the first was that no funds would be from grants could be expended on on a project that used any DEI words or any words related to climate change. So that's been very difficult because the grants required that those that language be used in the prior administration. So in some cases, we are doing what Jean is referring to, which is called scrubbing a funding agreement. That's that final funding agreement we talked about earlier, that is a template that comes from the federal government to the community receiving the grant. And so in some cases, we're scrubbing that from the last administration's form to this administration's form, but we're waiting for those forms to come through to make sure that we can ensure we receive the $35+ million we're waiting for in federal grants.
Thank you.
Any others? No? Okay. I have a couple of questions here. So first, let's talk about the sustainability program, the Climate Action Coordinator. So can I get a little bit more information about, this was asked, the request was for this to be a recurring position, and the package was being recommended as non-recurring. So this may be something, Gina, you could answer, Corey could answer. I know the city manager's on the phone too, so, Mike could also discuss this.
Are you looking for numbers or a why?
More of a why. So that's probably a city manager question. So Mike, that might be one for you.
And the question, Mayor, was about the sustainability position that we're asking to extend for another year.
Correct. Yeah. The request was to have it be a recurring position, and we've got a recommendation for a non-recurring. So I'm guessing another year is what we're looking at here.
Right. So, and Gina Bell, I would say appropriately asked for it to be, continuing from year to year. And I very much see the value of the position, and the person that's in it, Michelle, is doing great work. And she and Gina and the rest of their team, mostly AmeriCorps, are a great team. My nervousness about approving it as a permanent position is I just don't know what's going to happen with this property tax legislation that's being considered at the state level. And I hate to create false expectations, knowing that, that there's something coming down the pipe. We know something's going to happen. And, if it's manageable, I could see next year, Gina making the same request and potentially getting it recommended. But I just didn't feel comfortable at this stage of recommending it as a permanent position, but I felt very comfortable recommending it for another year.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. I think that helps to answer my question at least. The other question I had was the slide you had about tracking of requests. It's unfortunate that I understand what you're saying. You're basically saying that we have a data tracking problem that we think we have the general answer to, but it's going to take some time to figure out how we can fix it. And you said next year, come back to us and let us know. I guess my question is, are we able to track accurately, using the multiple different sources that we have? Are we able to track accurately how we're doing with responding to resident requests?
Yes.
Okay.
The data that's in here, and we could break this apart dozens of different ways if you want to look by department or request type. The data is good data. But the story that it told us overall was that we took, I believe that the number is thousands of requests out of the system that were open and closed within a day. And so that took a typical complicated nuisance complaint might be 180 days. And so that very quickly changed the numbers
Right.
this
So
year.
it just basically what we're looking at is skewed data
Yes.
because of that right there.
Yes.
So
Yep, it is accurate but skewed
yeah.
data.
So last week when I asked for a new yard waste decal for my house, that's not on this chart because
Correct.
that's the easy stuff. And that got dealt with literally in a day, it
Yes.
just showed up at my house. So that's the kind of stuff that's not shown here. So we are tracking it, we can see it.
Yes.
But we need to figure out how to make it so that we can look at it in a clean way going forward.
Yes, and the thing I'll tell you all about this new software is I'm really excited about the engagement opportunities with it. This system that we have has served us well, but there's a lot of pull out a report as an Excel document, PDF it, and then dig into it. Whereas we have the ability to set up dashboards and set up teams and a lot more functionality that's going to make us much more responsive to residents. And the thing that's really exciting is that you don't have to be at a desk to use it. Our staff that are out in the field with mobile devices can also respond in real time.
Excellent. Well, that's good to know. I'm happy to hear that. I wanted a little more explanation on that, just so this didn't look as bad as it. So we knew that this isn't as bad as it looks. Because this looks pretty bad when you look at it at first. So it's good to have a better understanding of it. So thank you, Corey.
Yes.
Well, I don't have any other questions on this one, but just a couple of comments to think about. Let me talk about what I'm frustrated with first, and then I'm going to talk about what I'm really excited about. So I'm frustrated to no end with the lack of clarity that we are receiving currently about some of the things that we're dealing with from a grant standpoint, and I'm really frustrated with the uncertainty. As Mike, our city manager, just pointed out about the position that we're looking at, which we know is working. We know it's a quality position. There's a quality person working in this position. We like what's going on, but we have so much uncertainty that we can't do what you've been requesting, which is to make it a recurring position. That's frustrating, to be in a situation where things are so incredibly uncertain at so many levels that we now have to deal with our budget in this way. I have a feeling, and I'll promise you that I'm going to try to do my best to stay off the soapbox as often as possible, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a theme for this entire discussion that we have around budgets, and I'm frustrated by that. What I'm excited about is we as a council heard you as a staff tell us that we needed to do some work as an organization. I mentioned the other night building a strong foundation, and one of the strongest legs of that foundation has to be the people who work for the city of Dubuque, so that work for all of us, the people who serve this community. And you have done so much work on that this year. It's really exciting to see the report of how much that has come together. We've been hearing bits and pieces about it. You've talked about it in these meetings. We've heard about it from the city staff as we go through the year. But to see this come together in this way and to see the plans for how it's going to be working as we go forward, I'm very, very pleased with what we're looking at. So thank you very much for all your work on that.
Thank you. If I can say thank you to you all, our staff has put in phenomenal work this year, but we couldn't do it if you all hadn't asked what's our role as policymakers in letting us do this work. And I think I speak for staff when I say we feel very supported by you all. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. The last thing I'll say has to do with the sustainability piece. So first of all, congratulations on another great Growing Sustainable Communities Conference. It was a fantastic time. It really does show off Dubuque well. People love that conference, and it really was a great experience, and I was glad to be a part of it, so thank you. What I will say is, we are also dealing with, as Gina pointed out, some challenging circumstances in trying to move sustainability goals that have been a part of what this city's fabric really is for a long time. We're looking at some real challenging times to do that. We could just stare at the challenging times and be frustrated by it like I was talking about before, or we have an opportunity here that I want to make sure we look at. I really do believe over these last few years and the things that I've seen that real sustainability work is going to be done by local governments and local organizations for the foreseeable future. We are not going to see a lot of that work coming from our federal government, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of that work coming from our state government currently. That's just not their goal. But it is still ours, and it has been for a long time. And I think it's a lot of the people in the community that feel that way. And I think there are a lot of ways to attack sustainability challenges that we see in our world today. So what I would ask us as a council is, as we think about this and think about goal setting and look at different budget pieces, is to look at this creatively and not just think about it in the terms of, I'll just use a simple example. Oh, we just need to throw up some solar panels in one place, Yeah, that's a great idea, but it's not the only way we need to look at this. I want us to think about it in terms of how we move around this community, how we think about energy efficiency in city buildings, how we think about vehicles and things like that. There are a lot of ways that we can build sustainability into the things we do, and I hope we do it. I just hope we do it for the sake of us, for the sake of our kids and our families and other people's kids and all the people we represent. I just hope that we are creative in how we do it, because I think it's important work, and I'm glad that we have an office that's focused on it. So thank you very much for this presentation. We really appreciate it. So thanks for being here. Gina, you're free to go home after all the time you've spent doing these things today. Okay, well, our next presentation is the City Council Fiscal Year Budget. So Corey, I believe you're presenting that one to us too.
I've always wanted to give the shortest budget presentation. I will be very brief and tell you that there are no significant changes proposed in the city council budget for the upcoming fiscal year. One of the things I did want to note is that you all are in the process of identifying a group to look at council compensation. There's no consideration for that in this budget because we don't have any data, and we would adjust as needed when we get to that point.
Okay, you are correct. That was the shortest presentation I've ever heard. We are in a public hearing, too, to consider the city council budget. So do we have any public input on this particular piece of the budget today? Seeing none here, anything virtually? Nope. All right, also the shortest public input period we've ever seen. So back to the table for any discussion here. Okay, we don't have any. So thank you very much, Corey. All right, well, we will move on then to the city attorney's office.
Sorry, that was a quicker transition than I expected. I'm used to being first. I don't go in the middle of the mix, and it throws me off. Cronum Brumwell from the City Attorney's Office. Happy Autism Awareness Day, hence the blue blazer. Let's see here. There we go. As you know, the mission of the City Attorney's Office is to provide legal counsel to the City Council, the City Manager, all officials and departments of the city, including boards and commissions when issues arise with the work that you task them with, related to delivering excellent municipal services that support the mission of the other departments. As you know, we are an internal-facing department. Our role outward of the organization is limited, and so we are internal service focused. Our office is funded at the level of 5.62 full-time equivalents. We are currently staffed at 4.62 full-time equivalents. As Jenny Messerich, we lost her to the airport, darn it. And so we are currently in the process of doing some organizational or office evaluation of our structure and things like that to do some future planning about what the makeup and structure of our office looks like in the 1-year time frame, the 3-year time frame, and the longer term, from a longer term picture or standpoint. This evening, Senior Counsel Barry Lindahl is with us in person, as is Assistant City Attorney Jason Lehman and our Legal Administrative Assistant Joni Meedinger. Our Civil Rights Specialist Shantae Weston is with us in spirit and I believe virtually as well. Related to the funding for our office, net operating property tax support for the City Attorney's Office amounts to just under $280,000, which equates to $3.69 in property tax cost for the average homeowner based on the values that you see on the screen. Related to public safety, our job in the City Attorney's Office is to facilitate the activities of other departments in moving public safety initiatives forward. So the work that we do stems from that of the departments doing enforcement work, whether that's building codes, zoning codes, nuisance codes, animal control, police department, even the fire department, and includes criminal prosecution of things like traffic violations and simple misdemeanors. We work with staff for administrative search warrants to get them access and inspection opportunities if there's a situation that presents a danger to the community so that we can evaluate it and resolve it. We work on abandoned properties and the petition process to target the most challenging properties in some cases in the community and to try and convert that ownership in a way that makes it productive and tax producing as opposed to draining on our resources and a blight on neighborhoods. We review contracts, specifications, and insurance requirements which result in public safety projects, public improvement projects that address both things like traveling on our roadways, but also our parks, facilities, lighting projects, things of that nature. We also do a significant amount of training and consultation with staff over the course of the year on matters related to public safety. Our highlights for, I forgot one. One thing I did not mention on our connection to public safety. This is not something that shows up on our slides because this is just kind of our standard run-of-the-mill doing business as usual in our office. We process all of the claims for the city. So when other departments have incidents, whether that is with a vehicle or with city infrastructure or in the parks or in the right-of-way, those claims go first to the city clerk's office. They are then turned over to the city attorney's office, where we work with ICAP, the Iowa Communities Assurance Pool, to assess those claims and make evaluations of them related to the city's liability. And part of what we do related to that claims work is kind of what I will call an after-action analysis in some instances to determine where we need to do policy reinforcement, some training, or some intervention in the hopes that perhaps we can prevent some of those things from happening again in the future. Highlights for fiscal year 2025, some ongoing projects and future initiatives are many of the things that you would anticipate the city attorney's office would be involved in regularly. So property tax appeals, working with our enterprise funds on utility extensions, open records requests, litigation, assisting in the bargaining of union contracts with the Human Resources Department and the applicable staff departments, civil service appeals, grievance arbitrations. We do a lot of leases and document reviews and those things that aren't so glamorous, but they keep us moving forward and they keep all the projects moving along. With regards to the prior year, you can see we tried to remember some of the things that we were involved in, whether that is air service agreements or the data center lease, internal investigations, updating ordinances, the collective bargaining agreements that are done and finalized and have been approved by the City Council, working to facilitate the HVAC project at Imon Arena, getting the 911 agreement updated with the county. It's been busy, but that never seems to change, and we like it that way. Related to development agreements and pending development agreements, as you can see, there have been a significant number of those that have involved the Economic Development Department, the City Attorney's Office, and outside entities such as the DRA, Gronin Development, Tyson's, so on and so forth. This is something new that we just wanted to make you aware of because this is something that we have done for years and on an ongoing basis, and it's property tax appeals. But the point of the slide is to give you an idea of the timing of some of these things and the fact that an appeal might be filed in 2021, but it was just resolved through its entire process in March of 2025. So a lot of these things linger and are ongoing for us, and so they carry over the course of multiple fiscal years, and so it's somewhat hard to peg them down to 1 year when we're talking about the work that we do. When you look at this chart, one thing I do just want to note, when you see in parentheses capital SFH, that means single family home. So you will see a mix of single family home appeals as well as commercial and industrial appeals. Human rights cases, this is a new measure for us. This is the first time we have tracked it because we decided that it would be more meaningful than some of the things we have tracked historically and provided you data on because, as I mentioned claims earlier, we don't control the claims. That is not something that we can measure in any sophisticated way. In the budget, it is an estimation of a rolling 3-year average of claims, and sometimes we're above it and sometimes we're under it. And so we were trying to come up with something more meaningful. So related to to the civil rights investigations that are done within our office. We are using a case standard timeline, and we are going to be tracking that moving forward with the goal of having this exceed 80% on average year over year. So this will be our base, and we're estimating that that will improve and will just continue to get better from year to year. Petition properties, as I mentioned, this is something that we actively do. We started in 2014, and since that time, we have had 55 properties where we have had active involvement in making, I think, a pretty significant difference in the community. And we deal in paper in our office, right? We deal in meetings in paper and things that you aren't necessarily tangible. And so I wanted to talk about this one specifically because this is one that I feel very proud when I drive by one of these properties in the community and see the difference that we make, because we don't always get to see progress in what we do. And this is a recent one right here. This is 290 Bryant Street. So this is right at the corner of Bryant and Rush Street up by Bryant Elementary School. This was a property that we dealt with for years, and I say we, bigger picture, enforcement staff, on nuisances, code violations, et cetera. We were doing the grass cutting, we were doing the snow clearing. Water had been shut off at the property for years, and we had been trying to engage the owner by taking them to court on infraction after infraction to get compliance. And the property owner at the time had good intent. He wanted to do something, but just did not quite seem to have the wherewithal to do so. And this was particularly concerning when you look on the picture on the right, because this is right at a corner where children cross the street to go to school every morning, and there are students and staff out acting as crossing guards. So it was a safety concern and a visibility concern for both pedestrians and traffic. So in this case, we petitioned for the property as abandoned. We went to court, we got a court order giving us the authority and authorization to take title to the property, but gave the property owner, with our consent, a time frame, a short time frame to get the property sold, cleaned out, etc. So when we finally had that court order saying, if you sell it, you will be able to walk away with some funds. If we end up with it, you will not. And in the end, we did not end up having to take title to this property. The property owner sold it to the Affordable Housing Network. They have completely rehabilitated it, and it is currently for sale. And it is a beautiful, I think, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home that I think will be a beautiful, affordable home for someone to move into. And I also just happen to have a kiddo in the Bryant School, and so I drive by this every day, and it just makes me super smile that all of his little friends and other kiddos are safe, but that somebody's going to get to live in this beautiful house. So this is the kind of thing that we can do using the legal process to make a difference. Lastly, I just want to talk about our continuing legal education hours. We appreciate you continuing to provide us with funds on an annual basis so that we can attend continuing legal education. We attend municipal training specifically with the Iowa Municipal Attorneys Association and the International Municipal Lawyers Association, and we bring home some real gems in the presentations and the nuggets of information, and we turn that into some creative thinking and ideas, and we put that to work for you, for our staff, and for the community. And I just want to, again, stress how much we value that and appreciate it. And with that, thank you, and I would be happy to take any questions.
All right, well, thank you, Krenna. Well, first, we are in a public hearing to consider the city attorney's office budget. Do we have any public input on this one this evening? Seeing none here. Anything virtually? All right, thank you very much. All right, back to us then for any discussion. Going once, going twice.
3 times.
Go ahead, Ms. Farmer.
Thank you. So kind of one thing you didn't mention, which we are privy to, is the fact that we have so many closed sessions. after our city council meetings in these last a few hours from time to time, and very repetitive in terms of the frequency. So I think it's interesting that you are able to take that time to work with us on those occasions as well. And it's not just a one-off, it's almost at every one of our regular meetings that we have the opportunity to learn from you and your expertise. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you for reminding me. I forgot about that. It's just so routine at this point.
Well, most of it becomes open, so there's that. Yeah, Mr. Russell.
One thing I'd like to add, Krenna, it was kind of a nice reminder as you're going through how your department supports public safety and also keeping our neighborhoods safe. And so sometimes when you're looking at the budget, you might not connect the city attorney with how it serves you as a resident. And I thought that was really great that you brought that up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Krenna, I have a question for you. First of all, thank you for the presentation. You asked for a position. You asked for another assistant attorney, and the city manager is not recommending it at this time. I think we know why. I mean, I think that the answer to that question of why, in most cases, just standard requests are not being recommended, unless there's some specific reason that, Mike, you want to chime in on. I think the reason is we're in a challenging environment here, and this is a difficult situation that we have to look at. We're already asking for an increase in property taxes, and yet there are quite a few positions that we're not going to be recommended here. I want to ask about this position, though, because is this the second time you've asked for this position?
It is.
Okay.
And fully recognizing that it was something that would take a period of time to likely be recommended, if it could ever be recommended. So
Right.
this was not a shock or a surprise to me that this was not something that was within the bounds of the budget. Completely
Sure.
understand that. When I mentioned earlier that we are down a position and we're currently doing some structure work within the office for the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plus time point, that is something that we are taking into consideration, because while I would like to think that Barry will never, ever, ever leave us, I know that at one point in time, he will, unless I can convince him otherwise. And so what we are looking at is the idea of a transition plan, if you will, because Jason and I will need to spend as much time getting all of that magic from Barry and working with him side by side. And in order to do that, that means we have to set to the side some of the other things that we do on a daily basis so that we can be accustomed to doing the work that he does without even thinking about it on a daily basis. So at some point in time, we will need a junior level position of sorts to help backfill some of the work that has to be done on a regular basis in order to have an effective transition plan. So that is part of the discussion, and we are looking at what that looks like and the timeline on where we think that starts to happen and what it will take to make it happen.
That's helpful context to understand that it's about the transition along with the work that's being done. But actually, my question is a little more immediate, though, because I'm looking at the slides that you showed us of all the things that you've done, and I kind of get to that the last couple of years have been a bit odd. There's just been a lot going on, and it is. I know it's been different, I think, than it has in past years, but there's an ebb and a flow to your work. What I want to know is, when you have all of this happening, aside from you all just adding hours of work to your life, how do you deal with the extra load? Do you hire other firms to be able to assist in some things? And I'm not just talking about like the cases that you might have to litigate, for example, but the cases that you have to just the things that you have to deal with. I mean, just the list of major projects, for example, going through everything an attorney has to do on that.
So depending on the scenario, we have worked with Mike and Corey and Shelley Stickford in Human Resources, and we have identified situations where we do not have bandwidth or capacity to take on something that might be time pressing. And so in that situation, we have thankfully had their blessing to retain outside counsel with a very limited project scope to address those immediate things where we either, again, don't have the bandwidth or have a conflict. And so we have been able to do that without issue, and it has been working to fill those gaps where they present themselves.
And there is room within the budget to be able to do that, and to be able to hire and do those things.
Yes, I mean, we always talk about it first to make sure that it's not going to create any sort of hardship or things of that nature, but yes.
Okay. All right. My final question is a Susan Farber question, just because I'm curious. When you go to all the continuing education that you've gone to, what's the discussion about artificial intelligence in the legal field and how that can be not a replacement, obviously, but more of an assistant to getting this kind of work done at the municipal level?
So it's interesting that you ask that, because we have currently, or recently, within like the last few weeks, been evaluating our legal like research and database service and things like that. And so we actually currently are doing a 14-day trial with a service that has an added AI component to see what that has to offer us. So that we can kind of start to dip our toe in that, because it is very new. And as lawyers, we are cautious, maybe even a little skeptical, right? When I first sat through a chat GPT session at an employment law conference a few years ago, they pulled up, they asked some legal questions, and they said, what case stood for the proposition of XYZ? And the chat GPT popped up a case citation, and the presenter then went to cross-reference it, and it was a completely false legal reference. Yeah. It was not a real case. And there have been lawyers disciplined in jurisdictions because they have used AI assistance in briefs or court filings, and they have not done their due diligence and gone back and checked that those were in fact actual citations and accurate citations. So we're starting to kind of dip our toe in that water and see what it has to offer us. We do know that there are likely to be some efficiencies made in things that you already see other people doing, writing memos, writing letters, things of that nature. It remains to be seen for us yet what that means on the legal research and legal drafting, but we're going to see.
Well, thanks for your caution and skepticism on that. I think that's probably healthy. But still, it is an interesting question to think about, because this is you're playing the long game on this and kind of looking ahead a few years. And as you do that, the technology continues to catch up. So it'll be an interesting discussion to continue to have.
It will.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And for all of the work that each one of you do in this office. I think just in looking at the lists that we see here, the scope of what you have to deal with and work through, and we do spend a lot of time with you, and you offer us some very, very important guidance. So thank you very much for everything that you do, and thanks for being here for the presentation. Okay, we will make another transition here to our city clerk's office budget. Oh, hey, you got me thinking, so I'm going to do it a couple of times, actually. Thank you. Please, yes, go for it, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Adrian Breitfelder, City Clerk, and I will be taking you through the City Clerk's office budget presentation. So starting off with our mission statement, just high-level summary, City Clerk's office is responsible for documenting the actions of the City Council and providing that information to staff to assist them with their work on various projects, grant applications, any other function that essentially keeps the city in operation. We're also involved with programs covered by the state civil service law and oversee various licenses and permits for activities as required by both city and state statutes. This slide shows our department, 4 full-time equivalents. I'm supported by Trish Gleason as Assistant City Clerk, Pamela McCarron as Permit Clerk, and Tuesday Bless as our Administrative Assistant. Covering our fiscal year 2025 highlights, as the City Council may recall, we transitioned the City Council agenda management software from Novus to Civic Plus in October. And I'm very pleased to report that we've heard nothing but positive feedback from city staff on the transition, which I think is fairly significant given the fact that the city had used Novus Agenda for 13 years. So significant time with one software. can potentially have growing pains when you're used to one software to move to a brand new software. And the fact that it was so quickly embraced by city staff, I think really resonates that we picked a good software. So we're very pleased with how successful that transition went. We also transitioned our special event permit application to CitizenServe, which is a software specific for licenses and permits. So we found that that has been very successful in creating a lot more efficiency on our side of things and being able to customize communications both to city staff who review the application as well as to customers who submit the information. Also gives the ability to pay their application fees through the portal. So definitely a lot of increased efficiency with that process. We did a significant number of boards and commissions code amendments. The main basis for starting those amendments was to strike gender balance requirements for state mandated boards and commissions after the Iowa legislature repealed those requirements at the state level. And since we were going to make those amendments anyway, we used that as an opportunity to make sure that there was better clarity and consistency among the requirements for all of our boards and commissions. And since we have over 20, it was quite the significant undertaking. Certainly appreciate the city attorney's office help in partnering with that. And then we also reorganized decades of city council legislation that typically has been housed in the city clerk's office, but with every year, that's more legislation that council adopts. And so it was getting to a point where we're running out of space. So our administrative assistant did a phenomenal job of identifying other spaces within City Hall to house that and make sure that it was properly classified and organized in a way that if we needed to quickly retrieve that legislation, we can still do so. And then looking forward, some future initiatives for our office is we intend to transition all of the licenses and permits that our office oversees to CitizenServe. And this will be very significant for us in the fact that all of our other licenses and permits exclusively overseen by the city clerk's office have previously only been available as a paper application. And understanding that it has become an expectation for quite some time now that people want to conduct business electronically. Also recognizing that there's a lot of significant opportunities for efficiency on the city staff side of things in terms of reviewing and approving those applications. So we definitely think it's going to provide a lot of efficiency for both our residents as well as city staff involved in those processes. We also want to transition all of our boards and commissions agendas to Civic Plus, having consistency in all city government public meetings being in one platform. A lot of benefits to that approach. And then we also want to track open records requests through report to DBQ, which you heard mentioned is that citizen response management platform that's going to be rolling out. Think that by tracking requests through that platform, it would make a seamless process for the residents in being able to initiate that request as well as the tracking and management of those requests on the city side of things. And then this slide shows our requested property tax support for fiscal year 2026. The one thing I want to call out on this slide as mentioned is that city council election expenses are biennial, and we do have the mayor and 3 council members' terms expiring at the end of this year, so we will incur election expenses in fiscal year 2026 for that. Regarding how our office supports public safety, a few different things I want to mention on this slide. First, with civil service hiring, the city clerk's office provides staff support for the Civil Service Commission, which is directly involved in the processes for hiring our police and fire positions as required in Iowa Code Chapter 400. So through the work that we do with that commission, they're able to help with staffing those critical public safety positions. We also conduct background checks on certain business licenses applications where we feel that vetting is necessary in situations where transactions will occur between a resident and that business owner in a setting where we feel that that vetting is necessary. And 2 specific examples I'll provide of that are our solicitor's licenses and our taxi driver licenses. If you think about both of those situations, they're situations where a resident might be potentially in a bit more of what you would consider a more vulnerable situation. As a resident being driven by a taxi, they're in a vehicle driven by that individual solicitor solicitor, having an individual go door to door, so approaching and interacting with someone at their residence. Those are situations where we feel it's necessary for applicants to be vetted prior to attaining that license, just recognizing that there might be certain circumstances where someone with a specific criminal background might be deemed a potential risk to public safety. So we want to make sure that we have those proper checks and balances in place to make sure that residents are not put in a potentially compromising situation. And then our special event permit process, our office oversees that in collaboration with multiple other city departments to make sure that events that occur in the city are done so in compliance with local regulations and are done so in a way that is safe. So just as an example, for pretty much all of our special event applications, they are all reviewed by police department and fire department who provide direct feedback to us. And oftentimes it's our department and those departments working directly with applicants if we find that there's specific questions we have or specific situations we feel that they need to mitigate in order for that event to occur successfully. And then keeping briefly on the topic of the Civil Service Commission, I did want to take a moment to briefly recognize the members of that commission. As mentioned, the City Clerk's office oversees the Civil Service Commission, currently overseen by these three individuals. So we certainly appreciate all of the hard work and commitment and volunteerism they have for this. As mentioned, the Civil Service Commission does play an important role in the staffing of our police and fire positions, which are high priorities for the City Council. So I thought it was just worth calling that out, thanking them for their service and the important connection that they place specific to those priorities. And then the last things I'll cover are our performance measures. Doing performance measures is slightly different this year. I'm trying to specifically call out ones that I feel our office has a more direct impact with the community, just to show our direct impact and engagement with the community through what we report on. So this slide shows the number of special events for the past 3 calendar years. So you can see the slight decreases, but it still feels like a high volume of events, especially when you look at a lot of the events that we deal with. They're often heavily involved in complexity and involve a lot of staff time, again, in making sure that they are implemented successfully. And it still does feel that you can't go, especially in the summer, go a weekend without having multiple fun opportunities of things to do. So still feel very confident in these numbers that there's still a lot of great opportunities happening in Dubuque. And then for this slide, we're showing the number of proclamations that have been issued in the past 3 years. Definitely, I feel one of the key ways that we engage in the community and vice versa, how that community even engages with City Council. So thought it was important just to highlight the significant number that are issued every year. And for anyone who is listening to this at home, the city does have proclamation guidelines posted on the website that detail the process for requesting and accepting a proclamation. And if there are any questions about that, they're welcome to contact my office. And then the last one I'll just cover, and this is one that we have covered on a year-to-year basis, is the percentage of boards and commissions openings that we've had for the past 3 years. And so you'll notice for 2022 and 2023 remained fairly consistent and then had a jump in 2024. And I'll pretty much say what I say every year is that fluctuations often happen, often for situations out of our control. We do find that commissioners will often determine that the time commitment no longer works for them, or they often move away. So in those situations, we do expect to consistently have vacancies for our boards and commissions. But I feel when you look at even just this past year alone, and I feel like it has been mentioned at previous council meetings, we feel like we've seen a very positive response in the past few months with the number of applications that we've received for our boards and commissions. So we're certainly hopeful that when we report on this number for 2025, that we'll see a much smaller vacancy percentage than what we saw for 2024. And that is all I have, so I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if it's all right with you, Mayor Kavanaugh, since I'm the one here who's manning the virtual meeting, if it would be all right if I could just confirm we don't have any virtual input
Sure,
from the
yeah,
dais,
absolutely,
and I can
yeah.
answer any questions there.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. Thank you, Adrian.
Yep.
So we are in a public hearing, so to consider the city clerk's office budget. So I will accept any public input now. Seeing none here. I talk slowly enough for Adrian to make it back to the desk.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No virtual input.
Okay, no virtual input there. All right, back to us then for any discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Sell.
I just want to let all those that are watching and listening know what a great job Adrian does and how important it is for all of us here to have the great skills that she has and all the proactive activities that she does to make our work even better. So just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I'll just jump in to say that thank you, first of all, for the presentation. And I've really appreciated over the last few years, it's been a really clear theme from your office how much efficiency and modernization you and your team are building into the system that you have to work with. Even just the example of a lot of things done on paper and phasing the paper out over time, because that's just what the expectation is. But it really, I think, has made things far more efficient. I mean, the process of working through the city clerk's office has, I think, notably changed as we've been here and gone year by year. So thank you to you and your entire team. I know it takes all of you to get it done. So thanks, Adrian. Okay. Well, that is the city clerk's office budget then. So we will move on to the communications office. All right, we're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Randy Gale, Public Information Officer, and appreciate this opportunity tonight to give you a brief summary of some of the work that's been done in the Communications Office since we last spoke to you about a year ago. And that the Communications Office team also includes the city's Geographic Information System staff. So Nikki Rosemeyer will present after I present on the comms side. So our mission statement, just as a reminder, is to increase awareness and understanding of city services and programs and to facilitate increased transparency of Dubuque city government to promote resident and stakeholder trust and satisfaction. The department's name recently changed from the Public Information Office to the Communications Office. So what's in a name or a name change? The responsibilities and work undertaken by staff in the department continues to grow and evolve, as shown by the list of activities on this slide. We do much more than traditional public information. We strive to provide communications assistance and support in a variety of forms to all city departments. The new name is more comprehensive, accurate, and modern, I'd like to think. As highlighted in the city manager's budget message, all city departments support public safety, and that's a responsibility the communications office takes very seriously. This slide includes just a few examples of some of our work and responsibilities that contribute to the city's overall public safety efforts. So I won't read these slides to you, but I'll. A significant change to note regarding the recommended budget for the communications office is how some staff positions are to be funded. Currently and in previous years, most positions in the department, most communications positions in the department, have been funded through the cable franchise fund revenues. Cable television providers are required to pay a franchise fee to the city on their gross revenues for video services, just video services, not internet or broadband or telephone services. For many years, Mediacom was the only cable television provider in Dubuque, and in recent years, IMON has begun to offer some video services as well. You're likely familiar with the term or the trend of people cutting the cord. That refers, of course, to cable television subscribers discontinuing cable television and opting for streaming video services instead. This graph clearly illustrates this trend and shows it has been accelerating in recent years. This is not a trend that's expected to reverse, but instead will likely increase or accelerate as our media and video consumption habits change. The decrease in this revenue source has created a funding gap and a challenge. As a solution, the city manager is recommending the elimination of a vacant part-time position in the communications office and to change the funding for remaining positions to the general fund. While the elimination of a part-time position will create some challenges in terms of staff capacity, we will do our best to maintain the services we offer. With that reduction, the communications office, including GIS, is recommended to be staffed at 8.5 FTE. I'm proud to be a part of this team, and I'm grateful for the talents and commitment of the staff you see on this slide. I'll reference them individually over the course of this presentation, but I want to acknowledge some of them are here tonight. Of course, Felicia Carner, multimedia specialist Felicia Carner is here. Nikki Rosemeyer, as I mentioned. Communications specialist Jesse Gavin. And of course, video producer Eric Moeller is back in the control room. Kristen Hill is the only one who could not be here tonight, and Jake Ironside from GIS as well. So I do want to mention before proceeding that this chart may be changing the next time you see it, as we plan to fill the vacant positions you see on the chart, and we strategize to respond to the elimination of that part-time position. The communications office will be reorganized. There may be some different titles, different assignments, et cetera, as we adapt to the organization needs and the available resources and staff capacity. In terms of requested property tax support, a net property tax support request of just over $372,000, and that amounts to $4.92 for the average homeowner in property tax. Some FY25 highlights. We launched a new design update of our website in June. I'll talk a lot more about new air service marketing. We've been busy with that since September. We had a City Focus magazine come out. We've been busy with temporary employee recruitment and marketing. I'll talk a little bit more about changes made to our live streaming and our video on demand transition. The Delivering Dubuque with Mayor Kavanaugh video series. Some work to support engagement related to the Central and White Corridor study, some major changes to public access channel management and the PEG equipment grant policies, and proud to remind you that we did receive 2 3CMA Savvy Awards, and thanks again for that opportunity to come and present those to you a few months ago. Now, as I like to do every year, just some splashy slides to exemplify some of the work that's been done. City Focus is mailed to all postal addresses in the city limits, as was the 2024 Police Department's annual report that just came out recently. And the City News newsletter you see in the middle there, reminder that is mailed to about 21,000 utility customers 6 times a year. And when that newsletter is not in those mailings, there's a different insert or flyer on a variety of topics. The entire communications team has been involved in the announcing, launching, and marketing the air service now available at the airport. This has included advertising strategy development, all related media buys, messaging and ad development, and monitoring ad performance. The airport's marketing budget, we've actually coordinated or managed a campaign that has combined or featured a mix of digital, social, print, radio, billboard, and television advertising. Communications specialist Jesse Gavin has managed all the media buys and facilitated placements, while all team members have assisted with ad development and multimedia production for the various parts of that campaign. And honestly, I could talk for 2 hours just about this campaign, but I need to stick to the 30,000-foot view. Pardon the pun.
Nice.
Yeah. Promotion and marketing of programs and activities of the Parks and Recreation Department is a priority for us, as illustrated by this small sampling of work here. Communications specialist Kristen Hill handles most of this for that department, along with their social media channels. Temporary employee recruitment for the Parks and Recreation Department is again a priority, and here's a sample of some of that messaging for this year. This slide features a handful of examples of brand and logo development projects by communications specialist Kristen Hill, who has carried the bulk of our graphic design load over the last year. A brand for the Central and White project engagement was developed. A completely new brand for Bunker Hill Golf Course was developed, and if you follow them on Facebook, you're seeing a lot of that brand incorporated into that messaging. Logo development for the Adopt a Spot program and the Office of Community Impact. A logo for the new Citizen Response Management System, Report to DBQ. You've already heard a little bit about that. And a completely new logo and entire brand for the Multicultural Family Center. Here are a few examples of the design and marketing support provided for arts and culture. Art in the River is a lot there. This slide contains just a few more examples of the variety of projects we either support, manage, or contribute to for all departments. This slide in particular shows some work with the fire department, housing and community development, sustainability, water, and transportation services. The wrap that's around that EV charger was actually designed by our staff. I wanted to mention that our work is not limited to public outreach and engagement. We also assist with internal communications and support retention efforts. One example is developing logos or brands for the city's employee resource groups. Felicia Carner stepped away from the camera for a little bit to work with staff to develop those. We also feature city staff on social media to acknowledge their skills, commitment, and dedication to the organization, our community, and just to humanize civil servants sometimes. Not pictured is the Spirit Times employee newsletter. That's produced 26 times a year to help keep employees informed. It's kind of switching over to media services for a little bit. We transitioned the city's live streaming / video on demand services, which was with a company called Granicus, and broadcast graphics server called Audience TV to a single platform. So we combined those into one. It's called Cablecast. This required a significant amount of staff time, but the overall savings have been substantial. The change eliminates multiple recurring technology fees and significantly reduces yearly service costs from over $20,000 annually to under $5,000. So big savings there. It also additionally streamlined the systems and has improved staff efficiency by consolidating those operations. Current initiative is the revision to the Public Education and Government, or PEG, Access Equipment Grant programs. To make things more efficient for both staff and applicants, we've split the application process into 2 tracks, one for community members and one for PEG channel operators. This restructuring should help improve understanding and make the program easier to manage for staff. We're currently in the process of coordinating 4 to 5 community member grants and 3 channel operator grants. Since our last budget presentation, Media Services has produced more than 125 videos for social media, live council meetings, marketing campaigns, like I mentioned with the airport and recruitment, PEG access programming, and more. Last week, we published another Delivering Dubuque with Mayor Kavanaugh episode in conjunction with the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan efforts. These segments are created in collaboration with the mayor and multiple city departments. So just a few of those examples there. And Eric is going to play a video now. I'll wait for that. So supporting the Communications Office, Media Services captures the moments and tells the stories that make up the city of Dubuque. Transparency, we aim to inspire community trust and inform residents about the work happening around them and behind the work. Our efforts draw a direct connection between city services and the lives they impact, whether it's sharing the why behind infrastructure projects, streaming hours of public meetings, spotlighting a community event, highlighting public safety, showcasing employees through recruitment efforts. Our work aims to inspire, engage, keep the community informed at every step. Garner and Eric Miller's contributions are an essential part of the greater vision of the Communications Office, ensuring that the community is always connected to the services that shape their daily lives. Okay, current initiatives, like right now. As I mentioned, that department reorganization, we hope to get going on that very soon. As I mentioned, the ongoing temporary employee recruitment and marketing, air service marketing, waiting for that good news to come from Denver Air Connection about those morning flights, so we can do a big marketing boost for that. The Parks and Recreation Summer Activities Guide is coming out soon. That's a 60 to 70 page publication, I think, digital publication. The report to DBQ, that new citizen response management system that will be launched later this week. So we have a lot of work to do with that, related also just launching it and marketing it to the community, marketing the app that will be available for that within the next week or so, but also integrating all that into our website. Right now there's a lot of links on our website that link to individual service requests within the current system. We've got to replace all those, so a lot of work to do there. Also working with the Sustainability Office on the Branching Out Dubuque in terms of engagement and marketing for that program. Also the Parks and Recreation Master Plan engagement, as I mentioned, and also the PEG Equipment Grant Program implementation. I just mentioned that as well, so that's keeping staff busy right now. Some future initiatives. The lead service line replacement outreach, we'll be working with the water department on that. Air service marketing is ongoing. The Move DBQ and Park DBQ, transition and launch when Transportation Services is ready to do those things. The fire department has an annual report. We'll be producing a publication similar like we did for police, and I believe that we're also planning to mail that to all households before the end of this fiscal year. Hope to do another City Focus magazine. Social media strategy review. Social media is constantly evolving, and we need to roll with those punches and look at all of our different channels, and are there some pages that maybe need to be absorbed into larger, more active pages, those kind of things. The 14th Street Overpass project will involve a lot of community engagement. And I should mention, we were just talking as a team today that we're really doing a lot of engagement work right now, and we're hoping there's not engagement burnout with the community. We're asking for public feedback on so many things right now, but it's valuable to get, and we hope people are patient and give us that feedback. There's some website ADA compliance review work that needs to be completed by April of next year. That will be a big lift. And it's also time for us to take a look at the broadcast system here within the City Council chambers. It's starting to show its age, and so we want to evaluate that, see what steps may need to be taken to make sure everything continues to function for these meetings. A couple of recommended improvement requests. One is for an online form solution. You probably read in the longer description in your materials, but we have over 300 different forms on the city website, and right now it's kind of a mix of different types of forms. Some departments require you to print out a paper form, write it out and mail it in or scan it. Sometimes it's a fillable PDF. Sometimes it's an electronic form through our Civic Plus platform. So this would be a solution that could standardize all those forms. It's a very robust platform, the one that we were looking at. With that said, this is the second or third year we've made this request, so we need to go back and kind of do an audit, see what all has changed within the last 2 years. Some departments have kind of gone on their own with some different solutions, so we want to make sure this is still the best fit. But that's something we'll be implementing. The second one is for an AI-based chat solution for the city website. And what I want to emphasize with this is that this would be an option. So this is in addition to the current customer service options we have. This is not to replace people answering the phone, people responding to emails, being able to come in and talk to people in their offices. This is an additional option for people who prefer to not have to have that human interaction maybe, or on our website in the middle of the night because they work third shift or different things. So that's what that is about. I want to just briefly go through performance measures here. Notify Me subscribers is the module on our website we use to send updates to email or text updates to residents. So we're holding steady there in terms of the number of subscribers. And this is just for our news releases, I believe, yeah. Social media followers continue to see nice growth there. And again, this is an aggregate of all of our platforms, so Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Nextdoor. Likewise with social media reach, nice growth, and big growth in social media engagement. You may wonder why, what happened in FY24 and what's happening in the current year, it's so different from the previous 2 years. And I think a lot of that can be contributed to the campaigns that we've done, a lot of paid social related to the seasonal employee recruitment and the air service marketing. And we've also done a lot more paid promotions for individual campaigns within departments. I'm thinking like lead and healthy homes and those type of things. So it does help with the engagement especially. YouTube, again, consistent growth there in terms of views on our YouTube channel. Homepage views of the city website, very consistent. Total page views, some big numbers there, but we also have a lot of pages on our website. And my last slide here, I just like to show this every year to give you an idea of how citizens, residents and stakeholders are using our website. The top pages visited, this excludes the index page, but utility billing, the search page, bid postings, housing and community development. Miller Riverview Park is always there in the mix, along with our pools. Join our team is our human resources page for applying for jobs, staff directory, recreation, news flashes. So no surprises there. Thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Nikki Rosemeyer next, and she and I will both be available for questions when she's done.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Nikki Rosemeyer. I'm the GIS coordinator with the city, and I am here to tell you about all the exciting things going on in the world of GIS. All right, first of all, it's an office full of all 2.25 of us. There's me, my GIS application specialist, Jacob Ironside, who's been with the office now for about 2 years, and then an intern position that is vacant because it is seasonal. Talking about current activities, we have a lot of current activities, but I just want to highlight a few of them tonight. The first one is the lead service line work. It's a project that's it's been going on for a number of years. We've done a lot of work with it already, and it still has a lot of work coming with it as well. Now we're kind of transitioning from a lot of office-related work and kind of project management, identifying who the residents are going to be, who are going to be getting these new lines into their houses and from the street and everything, into more of the construction management side of things now. So just recently I created a couple of new applications, one for the consultant who will be working in the field and the other one for the field workers who will be capturing a lot of data, things related to the piping, the structures, pictures of things going in, that type of thing, just project management in the field, things that we aren't necessarily capturing right now because there's no action going on, but that will be coming up this spring. Another current activity is Adopt a Spot, the cool logo that was designed by Kristen in the office here. This is a project that's working with the Office of Community Impact. So I've created a number of maps and applications, including a hub site, surveys for data collection, maps and dashboards for the project management. And basically what this project is allows individuals or groups to basically adopt a spot in the city and keep that area clean. So by collecting, litter and trash and different things in those different areas. So what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to log in and choose their spot where they want to volunteer their time in our community. And then they'll also be able to report cleanup activities and anything else that they capture. And so there is some components of this that kind of have like some webhooks, which mean like when you fill out a survey that someone will get an email right away that says, oh, so-and-so wants to sign up for this, or someone needs supplies, or there was a cleanup activity that occurred. So it's pretty cool. It's been a nice collaborative project between the GIS office and the Office of Community Impact. Another one is seasonal collection, and this is now it's ending, but which is okay. So the last couple of years, we've been doing some leaf rakeout collection work through GIS, and so through Survey 123, we've created a form that either citizens or staff can create a request for a leaf rakeout appointment in the fall, and also for seasonal organic collections in the winter as well. So that project just wrapped up this last week, but there's been a really great amount of usage of the project. It basically allows residents and staff to enter the request for the leaf breakouts or winter organic collection request and to manage their locations on the map for collection efficiency. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in the coming slides. Some project support that's not necessarily offered through my office, but something that GIS is supporting through the city. And one of the biggest projects probably that we've supported in a really long time relates to the engineering department. The engineering department is working with HDR, as a consulting firm, on a sanitary sewer asset management program, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And included in that is the consultants looking at the health of our sanitary sewer system. So GIS is doing the lifting for all this project. Like, there's nothing being done outside of GIS for this project. If we did not have GIS data, they would be kind of in a world of hurt for doing this project. Eventually, what we want to do with this information, after looking at modeling, showing where the sanitary sewer risks are in our community, we want to be able to create an application that will allow us to pinpoint developments and say whether or not the sanitary sewer can support that development in that area at that time. Also, as a part of this project is hydraulic modeling of the sanitary sewer system. Again, this is all done in GIS. So this one's just kind of looking at just basically flows and stuff in the system. Not as exciting as the last slide was, but again, this is all being done in GIS, and these are not small projects. This is a $100,000 project that is working on, like I said, all in GIS. Another project that the city is partnering with Dubuque County and the city of Asbury on is for MS4 activities. MS4 standing for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, which I can never remember. This project was put together by MSA, who's a consultant, and is being used by field staff to monitor construction projects and stormwater runoff throughout the county. This project was also built completely in GIS and includes a number of dashboards, surveys, mobile maps for data collection and management. Some future initiatives, sometimes it's a little bit hard when you're looking down at your desk to try to figure out what you're going to be working on. So these are just a few things that have kind of popped up here. One for a while and two more recently. In her presentation, Gina had mentioned a city building inventory. They were talking about Energy Star measurement with there, but we were also looking at just trying to get a handle on how many buildings we actually have that the city kind of manages. And the number is over 300, so I think it's a lot bigger than what people were expecting it to be. But we're looking at things like, like ranking the buildings based on occupancy, age, electricity, plumbing, like I said, those Energy Star ratings, that type of thing. I'm going to be working with the planning department and Dubuque Main Street on a downtown building survey, and basically creating a dashboard application to identify buildings usage in the downtown area. And that'll kind of be, I don't want to say a 3D project, but instead of looking at a building as a whole, we'll be looking at the buildings like level by level and seeing what kind of use each floor has and how we can make the best uses of the buildings in the downtown area. And then the last one is one I think I talk about every year and I never get it done. It's always on the list, modernizing GIS solutions for the city departments. And so I have a number of departments who are still using older GIS software. And it's just basically kind of bringing them up to speed and using new GIS applications and not necessarily using desktop GIS, which has kind of been the tradition for a lot of the users in the city, is be more moving them to applications that are web-based, and so they're a little bit easier to use, and you don't have to learn GIS and sit through classes for 3 days and try to figure out how to use it, that type of thing. So that is the goal, to get everybody off the old stuff and into the new stuff here the next year. I did have one improvement package that was approved, and that is for ArcGIS Hub Premium. What Hub Premium is basically, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of hub sites before, but hub sites are just very project-specific web pages, and the hub sites that are based on GIS data take GIS data out of our databases and feed that information back to the public. So for example, with the Adopt a Spot information, we'll be able to know how many bags of trash were collected, how many volunteers participated in the events. Trying to think of other things that's basically the main hub site that we have going right now. So this allows us to do a lot of different things. It allows us to contact people. So if they have specific project interests, so like I said, Adopt a Spot, if there's an event that's coming up, or if it's maybe they need a reminder that it's time to go do the work in their area, that we can send out communications via text or via email, allowing those people to get that information. But it's a great way of data collaboration, and just like I said, sharing information. The data is freely available to anybody who is looking for something specifically related to a project. And I have a capital improvement project as well, and that is our aerial photography. And so I'm thrilled that this is being funded for this year. This is a project we'd like to do every other year just because things change so often. And there's not anybody in the city who's using GIS who doesn't use aerial photography every single day. It's something, I would say probably the top two values of GIS would probably be the aerial photography and the parcels. I think those are the two things. If you had to pry something out of someone's hands, they would say, don't take those two things away from me. So this is pretty exciting that we have this project. We had it flown back in April of 2024, and we'll have another project done probably in the spring of 2026 as well. Speaking of performance measures, I show this slide every year. I actually updated it this afternoon because it wasn't quite right. The address points get updated every day, and I know that's something that I talk about every year. So we have over 34,000 addresses in the city. Obviously, that changes every day with additions and deletions. It's definitely the most touched feature class that we have in our data set. It's also probably the most important one of the most important data sets we have besides those aerials and parcels. But we are using it for a lot of different things. So the citizen serve application that you've heard about a number of times tonight, report to DBQ that you've heard about a number of times tonight, anything that if you ever filled out a form where it's auto-filled an address and it's on the city's website, is probably using this data set from GIS. So it's really important to us, and it's just kind of nice to have the breakdown. We do use it for mailings as well, so we can identify, pretty quickly how many, residential addresses or industrial addresses, that type of thing that we're sending our mailings to. Speaking of applications, our zoning site continues to be the most popular of our web applications that we have out there. It hits about 10 times a day, which is pretty impressive, I think, actually. So that's just for the last year or whatever. And you can see, obviously, that kind of goes up and down. But this is used by the public, realtors, city staff as well. And if services ever go down, it's probably because this one went down first, and that's all hear about it. So. All right, and then talking about web applications. So whenever people think about web applications, a lot of times they think about maps. And web applications also include surveys, and I've mentioned the surveys a little bit before. So here's just a couple of examples on the screen here, but I would say over the last year that we have made more surveys than web mapping applications for the organization. And it's a really great way to collect some information. Some examples of surveys that we've done that are public-facing include the winter yard waste, lead service line interest and consent forms, the branching out Dubuque interest form, adopt a spot sign-up, City Dubuque Unified Development Code feedback forms, claim your cart, and shovel crew, just to name a few of those. And so some people think, well, what does a survey have to do with GIS? And sometimes it doesn't, actually. Like, you can have a survey that's in Survey 123, which is the application we use, and it doesn't necessarily have to have a map with it. You can collect information that doesn't have any geographic component whatsoever. However, if you do have a geographic component, this is a really great way to take out a couple of intermediate steps in the mapping process, because this maps the data for you. And so you're taking out, like I said, taking out those steps of exporting data out of another system, bringing it into GIS, geocoding it out, trying to map it that way really quickly, which this is all the stuff that you're seeing here on the screen is basically how it comes in from the survey itself. And so these are some pretty heavy data sets. I think one on the one side is water consent forms, and the other is, I think maybe they both might be water consent forms or whatever. So there's a lot of information coming in here. Like I said, it maps itself out, and then from there we can do data analysis without having to take those, like I said, extra steps that we have in there. Let's see. And then lastly, just looking at performance measures again. This does not include the surveys because they kind of run in a different system, but we've had 73 applications over the last year that we've touched or created. 45 of those were web applications, so there's some dashboards and some other things in there as well. And then of those, the public ones are 15 of the 45. So this size is just basically showing that we're doing a lot of applications. And the way that GIS is going is with applications. It's not necessarily, like I said, with desktop stuff. And so basically the more work we do anymore is a lot in online stuff. Desktop work is for kind of like the heavy user, like me and Jake, and some other users in the city. But this is basically kind of the trend. It's going towards applications, and this is how we'll be meeting people where they are with information, and also people who work for the organization as well. And that is all I have for this evening. So now we're ready for questions.
All right, well, Randy, Nikki, thank you very much. So we are in a public hearing for to consider the communications office budget. Do we have any public input this evening? Seeing none here, I think virtually, Adrian. Virtual. Thank you very much. Okay, back to us then for discussion and questions. Ms. Farber first, and then Mr. Resnick.
So let's continue with our AI conversation. And Randy, I'm just really pleased to see that we are going to have some online forms that the residents can use, and then also the It's a great first step, I think, for us to showcase actually the use, if you will, and the increase in efficiency, hopefully, that the department will have. And I was just wondering if there is an opportunity to collect data and to share information with us next year, or when appropriate, to see how it's being used and the number of hits or uses, so that we can get basically a use case, if you will, for these
ROI,
applications.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. We will incorporate that into our budget presentation next year, and it's a robust system. Both are very robust systems, so I think we'll be able to report back to you next year on that.
I think it's going to be a great testimonial because you've got 300 forms. I think that's amazing that we have that many, and hopefully those that are listening will take advantage of the fact that it can be 24/7 and you can just get your form completed. And then also on the other side of the chat, to help your staff in terms of replying to all of the inquiries that come your way. And then for Nikki, I just wanted to thank you again for all that you do and your very compact staff. And I know that you continue to ask for more assistance and more staffing, and with appreciation that you continue to ask, and hopefully at some point that can be enhanced for you. But very much looking forward to the aerial photography, your add-on there, I think is exciting. And also the fact that you will have an additional level of your platform, that you will have some software application that'll be a little more sparkle to your unit. So I'm really pleased to see that eventually. And now this year we've added some technology for you to help you be a little bit more efficient and have more fun as you're doing all these great things. And it's just amazing what you guys do. And so I just wanted to thank you very much for all of your work, because it impacts every department, whether it's public works or engineering, in terms of all the infrastructure and all the special projects that you support. It's just amazing what the GIS group has done. And then for Randy, for all that you do for us in terms of our marketing and our ongoing testimonial to how much fun it is for you to help support and spread the good work about our brand. I think it's just really great. And it's an honor to hear all of this, and it's just a pleasure to hear about it as well. So thank you.
Mr. Resnick first, and then we'll go
Thank
to
you.
Joe.
So, Mr. Gale, could you please tell me about the, do you anticipate the decrease in cable TV funding, PEG funding? Do you expect that to continue? So are we planning, how do we plan to respond to this? I know this year we are using more property tax support, but I don't know what is actually where the costs are that we have for cable TV content. But with more social media, more website, is there a way to do less cable TV if that's not where the people are? Or how do we respond to this continuing fewer dollars coming in?
Right. Well, and a couple points that I want to make. While the number of people who are subscribing to cable television is going down, clearly as referenced by the declining revenues, and it's a national trend, we are picking up other viewers on other platforms. So right now there's people watching this on Facebook. It's streaming live on our website. So when we think of cable TV staff, it's really media services staff who they're not just operating our two government access channels and the community public access channel. So they're operating 3 channels on the system, but they're also providing that content for our social media channels and the same streaming program and video on demand. As you know, you can go to our YouTube channel and watch all these things, and our website, it's all video on demand too. So I don't see those efforts decreasing, but in terms of responding to the declining cable franchise fee revenues, if there are specific questions about the magic that the budget team did to find a way to cover that gap, I'd have to defer to them. But I think, as I understand it, they've identified a plan to cover it next year and going forward. That as that gap grows every year between what's coming in from cable franchise fee revenues, that's going to be filled with general fund revenues. Is that correct, Jennifer?
So we don't have any specific content just for cable. It's that we put it across all our ways to communicate.
Yeah, those cable franchise revenue funds funded my position, the two media services position, another communication specialist position, and part of another one, I believe. I don't know the exact details, but they funded not just those media services positions, but several others that did more than just cable TV.
So the plan is just to put it on the property tax support
To
to make up
transition
for
to
any.
general fund support, yes.
All right, so I guess I got a question from a citizen who's saying, you know what? I used to be able to turn on the TV and get some, back in the day. I remember that. Turn on the free commercial TV and they, for the weather and just basic things. And now people, especially on Social Security, and do I really have to spend $200 a month, for what I used to get for free? And they used to have, with cable, we used to have no commercials. Well, that's, as it goes, it's adjusted. We have just as many commercials as we used to have on just the over-the-air. So, I mean, we're using citizen tax dollars, and yet some people are not able to use, to get onto these platforms. I'm just curious, if we could have a plan or a program, or, we do have, healthy homes and try to take the lead out. But, is there a way in Dubuque that we can use, antennas on homes anymore? Or do you really have to have a cable connection and, have that kind of outlay every month?
Yeah, well, we're not in the television broadcasting business, so, but I understand what you're saying, and to my knowledge, as long as I've been in Dubuque, you have to have cable television. You had to have cable television. You could not pick up much over the air broadcast system. Some spots can. I think there was a little bit of improvement there when everything went digital, but to my knowledge, forever in Dubuque, you had to have a cable subscription to get television. So I don't. Maybe I'm not understanding your question correctly.
Well, it's a kind of a murky question, if you ask me. Is a whole bunch of aspects to my question, but we are doing the general tax support into this.
To the communications office.
Yes, to the communications office, so that we can help our citizens get all this, and some citizens are not able to. I'm just trying to, just wondering if there was a connection that we could maybe improve that. I know you're trying to do as much as you can. You've improved quite a bit the administrative overhaul recharges. Mm-hmm. So I see you're trying to do what you can.
Well, and I would also say that those funds are used, those funds that are going to come from the general fund support everything we do. It's not just what we do on the cable television channel. It's the publications, it's the social media, it's the public outreach, it's special events. It funds our time to do all those things. So I understand the challenge you're pointing out with cable television, and we occasionally hear from residents who call that, in 20 years ago, when they called the city with an issue with cable television, we had some leverage to support those requests, those customer service issues. But since 2009, when the state converted our municipal franchise to a state franchise, we lost all leverage, so that now those cable franchise agreements are not with the city of Dubuque, they're with the Iowa Utilities Board. So we've kind of been taken out of that equation, for quite some time.
By the way, all those things that you mentioned, I think you do at such a high quality. I love all the things that are coming out of your office. So they're really high value, and I appreciate that. Thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It's a team effort.
Mr. Mayor, Mike Van Milligan.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
So I just wanted to contribute a little bit. I don't want to lose that point that Randy Gale just made, that in 2009, the state took away our right to have local franchises and made it a state franchise. And I just have to tell it like it is. It's a state franchise written by the corporations. And we had probably one of the best franchise agreements in the country as far as municipal rights. And then the MediaCom people went to the state legislature and lobbied to get everybody's local agreements null and void and make it a state agreement, which, as I say, basically the corporation MediaCom wrote. And that's the boat we're in. They're playing the music and we just have to dance the tune.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Jones.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Regarding the flyovers for the GIS mapping, is this in coordination with the assessors' flyovers, or should it be?
It would be nice if we could, in some cases, they usually fly a different source. They use something that's like more oblique imagery, and so we don't get the accuracy of the data that we need for mapping out utilities and things with that project, unfortunately. So we do usually do a set of projects where every once in a while they'll fly one that we can coordinate on, but not very often.
Sounds like something we should work on, maybe on that end.
Right, absolutely. Yep, oh yeah, yep, I work pretty closely with the county GIS coordinator on those types of things, and so, I mean, he and I share RFPs and stuff a lot, but like I said, the assessors have a different need for things than we do for the city, so we just don't necessarily get the same quality of data out of the project that they do.
I certainly appreciate and understand that the depth of information that you have in this system, pretty much all from your years and years of work, exceeds anybody's imagination almost. And the county uses theirs more for discovering building projects that were not permitted, things like that, which is a great use for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyhow, I just thought that would be a good question. I do understand the real decision, back to the last question with Randy. Cable television doesn't have much to do with what you do anymore, except it was an income source that's now diminishing, I think is a fair statement. And the question before the council, is recommended by the city manager, is these 5 positions are important enough to the city manager that he's recommending, even though the cable franchise fees will no longer pay for them, that the general fund now pay for them. And I agree with that sentiment, that they're important positions that you produce tons of valuable information, sometimes emergent information, to get in the hands of the public and keep us safer, keep us smarter, do other things that have been, without the work of the communications division, we'd have never met that major goal last year of having our pools open. We would not have come up with the lifeguards without all the things that you guys put together to push out in the community and get people inspired to come and do that. The quality of the work that comes out, pretty hard to argue with the quality of policing, but to document it so well and tell the story so well in that publication that just went out to everybody about the extraordinary quality of work done by our police department, presented with extraordinary quality from your department. So I'm real proud of your team, and I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you. And we're thankful for the support you give us and the great work that all the other departments do. They give us great material.
Other side of the table. We good? All right. I have a couple things. So I have to find them. Sorry. So I guess my first question, Nikki, I want to do a little bit of a thought exercise here, just a brief one, if we could. So you've asked for several positions that are not recommended. I know that you asked for several positions last year that are not recommended. Right. If we had those positions, all of them, what would it look like? I mean, like, what would we be doing differently? What would we have to work with? What other projects are out there waiting that aren't getting done? Right. Because we just don't have the people power to get it done.
Right. There would be a lot more work with departments on getting information out there. So, for example, I don't have the opportunity to reach out to departments and say, hey, instead of hiring this consulting firm, to do this work, maybe we could do this in-house or whatever. Maybe our software can handle this application that you're requesting from a third party. I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the opportunity to do that, unfortunately. In the one position I asked for was like a web application specialist, and that would be really nice to have, just in order to basically really customize some of those apps. They come out of the box, pretty clean and pretty nice as it is, but just to have somebody who knows web programming and things that I don't have the time to learn or the ability to have time to do those types of things, just to make those applications a little bit more stronger. And also, like I said, again, working with other departments and getting applications out there. So there's a lot of stories and stuff that we could be telling for different departments through our GIS data, because our database is huge. We have so much data, and we don't necessarily do everything with that data all the time, So like the sanitary asset management program that we're doing, it's one of the first projects that we've really used a lot of the GIS data that we have to tell a story with things, So we have so much other data that we carry for other departments that it would be nice to have that to have that. So it was just, it would be nice. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have a full staff. So
Right, right. Well, I tell you what, I have a suggestion as we think about this in the year ahead, because I know we're not recommending them now, and I don't know, based on, we're going to have this conversation almost every single night, based on the circumstances, I can see why. But you kind of had me at, we can save money. Like when you said, well, we could save money if we do it this way. And I think that a suggestion might be as we think about this next year, because you've asked for this multiple times, we've had some pretty good discussions in this room about it. And as we think about this next year, if you can come to the table with some specifics of here are the places where we can save that money and not have to hire an outside consultant to do that work like you suggested, if we can have those specific examples, I think that us and the public might buy in more to that particular idea to be able to say, we could do this stuff and it would actually be more efficient and it could be more effective and we could analyze data that's just sitting there waiting to be looked at. I think I'm attracted to that idea. I like it. I think it would be a good thing. But we do need to be able to make the argument that it's not just costing more, because I added it up just really briefly looking at this, and it's like, it's well over it's just over $100,000 in property tax asking that we would be doing to be able to add the positions that you've asked for. That's a harder pill to swallow than, but we save $1 million. I'm just making up a number here, that kind of thing. Yep. So just a suggestion as we look at this next year, I think it could be helpful because I think we can see the benefits in doing it, but it's a hard ask every single year. It's a hard thing to be able to say yes to. And it'd be great if we could make it easier to say yes to for the right reasons. So just a suggestion to think about as you, because I know you said, as you're doing the work, it's hard to think forward in that way, but working together, I know you can come up with some pretty good ways to be able to think about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
But thank you very much. You do incredible work. I mean, it really is very, very useful, and we see the need for it. We see the use of it, and we really appreciate it. Randy, you guys also do incredible work. I mean, you make other cities jealous, and that's always fun. To make other people jealous for the work that we're doing, because you're doing it really well and we appreciate it. And I know we ask a lot of you, and you mentioned it a couple times with the air service stuff, and you and I know that well because we work together on that sometimes, and I know that it can be challenging to do, but I think it's making a difference, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for your support. And,
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Build on your last comments there. Maybe a keystone comparison is the project you're already doing with the sewer capacity work. I bet engineering could give you a pretty decent guesstimate on what it would have cost to hire an external engineering consulting firm to accumulate and analyze that data that you're doing in-house. That could be the first place where you can say, well, we did this project, it worked out great, and here's what we didn't spend to have us do it. So you might have a good chunk of that question already answered.
I just wanted to make a comment. Your slides are beautiful and very eye-catching, and the messaging that you do on them is so unique. But you do a great job of educating. And so when we have asked you before, we need to quickly create messaging so that our community is informed about a topic, you're on it. And you do a great job with it. You're a great communicator. Your team they're great communicators just in knowing how to express that in a very succinct way to educate our public when we need it done. And so as beautiful as the slides are, I want to give you credit for the educational opportunities that your department provides for our citizens.
Thank you.
Well, and the final thing I want to talk about is back on this cable franchise fee, because I want to make a point with it. What year did you say it was that this stopped?
2009.
So 2009.
2009,
All right.
yeah.
So 2009, we're looking at 16 years ago, the Iowa legislature makes a decision to change the way the funding stream works. And now what we see is can you go back to that slide for me, please, if you could, that one in the beginning?
Too many slides.
It's like 46 slides ago, something like that. I think it was actually like number 2. It was way back there. I apologize. I'm making it difficult. Okay. Just, just looking at that, it's a clear decrease. And it's just, and you're right, it's gonna go down to near zero one of these days because it's just the way things are going. Unless a new law is written to be able to gather those types of funds in that way. You know, this was actually a pretty innovative way to gather funds to be able to fund things that we need, and in a community like ours and communities across the state. But so 16 years ago, this decision is made to do this, and now the argument is being made, well, property taxes are too high. We lean too heavily on property taxes. I agree. We lean too heavily on property taxes, and I think a lot of cities agree with this. The challenge we have is that this is the stuff that has happened over years. Little bits and pieces are taken off in chunks that were innovative ways to be able to fund the services that we have. And now we're sitting here with a bare bones situation where we have to just focus so much more on property taxes. And what I would hope we can do in working with the legislature on this is to be able to come up with some more creative ways like this in a modern society to be able to do the things we need, because the services we're talking about are useful and necessary. You even talked about some really specific things that you're doing to cut costs and save money in certain places. And that's the kind of efficiency that we're trying to work with here in the discussions that we have as we go through this budget. But if we're just gonna say property tax is bad, we need to cut them, and nothing else about that conversation, we need to have a conversation about how to get things done in cities in an appropriate way without leaning so heavily on property taxes. So I thought it was just a perfect example of how to make that point. So I appreciate you pointing it out, because there is a serious erosion there of our ability to be able to fund your department doing the work that you do.
And just to put a fine point on this particular example, you know, the cable franchise fees are charged to those providers. It's like for their use of the public right-of-way to deliver that service, right? Well, it only applied to as I said, to the television, to the video service. Right. They're using that same cable, those same cables on the public right-of-way to deliver broadband and telephone services, but they are not, you know, we get $0 for the use of that. So there's just a lot of issues with this legislation.
Yeah. It's choices that we make. I mean, it's how we choose to be able to do these things, and it's how we choose to fund it. We are choosing to look at things and try to build efficiency into the system, but we also need some help in choosing how to actually fund the things that are really necessary. So, well, thank you very much for the discussion, both of you. We appreciate all the information and all the great work that you've done this year, so thank you. All right, our final public hearing of the evening is Human Resources. So we'll do one more change over here. We're ready when you are. Yeah, go for it.
Last but not least.
Right.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, co-workers and colleagues that hung around. They all left us, didn't they? Those of you who are joining us live stream, and certainly members of the public, we really appreciate the opportunity tonight.
Shelley, point the mic at your mouth just a little bit. There you go. That's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. For us to share the work that the Human Resources team has been engaged in over the past 12 months since we last had the opportunity to speak with you all, and as part of the FY26 budget process. Human Resources here at the city is one of the city's primary internally facing departments, as our services are provided in support of what I personally consider to be our most valuable capital, and that's our human capital. Because the city's product is the provision of services to the residents of the great city of Dubuque, much of what we do requires qualified, highly skilled humans to provide the myriad of services throughout the city. Our mission statement to that end has not changed significantly. We focus on collaborative efforts and strategic partnerships to recruit, develop, and retain a workforce that's able to provide the excellent services to the residents of the city of Dubuque. Oh. It would help if I advanced the slides. That's why she's here. Our mission statement also focuses on fostering a healthy, safe, and productive environment, maximizing individual and organizational potential, as well as maintaining the city of Dubuque as an employer of choice. carrying out the HR department's mission and the city's related goals is an outstanding group of talented folks in human resources. I'm happy to tell you that you're not going to hear just from me tonight. Many of the staff within the Human Resources Department are here with me, and they're going to be participating in tonight's presentation, so you get to hear directly from them firsthand about their efforts, their activities, and the tremendous difference that they make each day. They're all pictured there. The only person that isn't present tonight is Kelly Larson. Those of you who have been in service for a while know that she's been with the city for a long time, so she deferred to let me do her part. Our newest staff are Mackenzie Capacious, who started in her role as the payroll and benefits specialist in May of 2024. And Robin Hosh, who, although she's not new to the city, she is new to human resources, and she began her role as the employee relations manager in December of 2024. I am so very pleased to have a fully staffed HR team for the first time in my 5-year tenure here at the City of Dubuque. Going to focus on some fiscal year 2025 highlights, and there are so many we needed 2 slides. So let's first start with some of these. You'll get more in-depth information as each of the folks within Human Resources gets to their particular activities or division. But for now, the classification and compensation study and review was being carried out and worked in full measure throughout fiscal year 25. 112 supervisors were trained on working with employees on development plans, setting goals, and conducting employee appraisals. And all departments have been tasked with completing those development plans by the end of calendar year 2024, and now initiating the first round of those to be completed by calendar year 2020, end of this calendar year 2025. The plans included universal competencies that are consistent for all employees of the city, regardless of their position, in addition to the specific competencies related to their role. Learning challenges focused on universal competencies as well, and approximately 100 employees of the City of Dubuque participated in a variety of in-person and online classes. 4 employee resource groups, or ERGs, have either been formed, or the 4th is in the process of being formed at this particular time, and they're carrying out their charters. And crucial conversations training has been provided to supervisors, 74 of whom received the 16-hour class in the fall, and we have another 112, which should capture all of our supervisors at the city for that 16-hour training in April, May, and June. Continuing to highlight some of the things that we achieved in fiscal year 2025, job shadowing and mentoring programs were launched January 1st of this year. To date, we have 1 job shadowing match, 4 mentoring matches, and a pool of 14 persons or employees at the City of Dubuque who have agreed to serve as mentors. The city bargained 3 collectively bargaining agreements in the spring of 2024, that being our fire, our police, and our operating engineers contracts, and we're currently bargaining and have a tentative agreement with the Teamsters bus operators and continue to bargain for the Teamsters mixed group. Employee and resource benefit, or retiree benefit education was advanced. Connie and Mackenzie are going to tell you more about that in a little bit. Several HR staff have continued the focus on the city's safety culture, and this occurred by way of continued collaboration between the Human Resources Department and risk management staff, Dawn March and Tony Breitbach, in the Finance Department, thanks Jenny, to assess and improve our risk management policies and procedures. And the collaboration continues with the refinement and the system work for our payroll system. It was implemented fully on March 17th of 2024. Human Resources has developed wonderful partnerships with the folks in IT and the Budget Division of Finance in order for us to work collaboratively on a system that has roles within all 3 of the departments, Human Resources, Finance, and IT, and to assure that all the fingers on the same hand are working in unison. Corey Burbach provided you some information about our employee feedback use, but continuous process improvement and ensuring that we're meeting city employees where they're at and making decisions that are well-rooted in employee input from employees and understanding their needs, their wants, and gaps has at its core an employee feedback loop. To that end, I wanted to highlight for you tonight just some of the methods or mechanisms by which the human resources staff and other city groups, like I said, Corey alluded to some as well, gather employee feedback. Those that I'll touch on that I don't think were included in Corey's slide are the workplace environment or culture audits, the HR office hours that we schedule throughout the city so that human resources staff are available at regularly scheduled times at various city work locations throughout the city of Dubuque, our HR committees and advisory groups, the employer resource groups, training evaluations. At the conclusion of training and presentation, we request and ask that folks provide feedback regarding that training, what I call at the moment or upon request, opportunities for folks to provide us information or feedback, and then a lot of after-action meetings whenever we've implemented a particular situation or circumstance. One of the final highlight that I want to share with you tonight is the Human Resources receipt, in part, of the Circle of Excellence Award, and it was provided to the Tyler implementation team. Whoops. This award is one of the Spirit Awards that is announced at the annual Employee Appreciation event that's held in May of each year, coincides with Public Service Week, Employee Week. The Circle of Excellence Award, according to the information regarding who and how nominees should be represented, is the, quote, ultimate, end quote, city employee award and recognizes the individual, or in our case, group of individuals, who best represent what it means to be a City of Dubuque employee and the spirit statement. The awardees personify the mission, vision, and values of our organization and move us towards our goals of being an equitable, sustainable, and resilient community of choice. Receiving this award has special meaning for our HR team for two reasons. First, because it is selected from nominations that are submitted by our coworkers and our colleagues at the city. And secondly, because it is shared, and it's our honor to share it, with an outstanding collaboration across 4 city departments: City Attorney's Office, the Finance Department, IT, and Human Resources. Future initiatives, so moving on to those for just a moment. Crucial Conversations training. The tagline is Tools for Talking When the Stakes Are High, is being expanded to not merely supervisory personnel, but to all city staff. Currently, our budget has funds to train approximately 20 new hires per year, and there's a recommended improvement package that would allow us to train all existing employees, including non-supervisory employees, over a period of 5 years. We continued to work on the selection and implementation of an HRIS, or Human Resources Information System. We're working with a vendor called IBTR, who will develop the RFP, and we've nearly completed all of the discovery phases for that. An HRI system will provide tracking of the performance appraisals, which will allow us to see trends in terms of levels of performance and the universal competencies, so that we can offer targeted training to further develop skills. It also offers a benefit administration tools, digital employee record keeping, employee access portals, and integration with our applicant tracking tools. We continue to market the marketing of and the education about city benefits. We continue to work on the implementation of the classification and compensation recommendations and an automated hiring matrix. I'm going to introduce Angie Kelly, our administrative support person, who's going to talk you through this next slide.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The FY26 requested property tax support for the net property tax is $438,619, which is an average of $5.79 for the average homeowner's property tax cost for the Human Resources Department. Thank you. I will turn it back over to Shelley.
You can stay here if you don't mind. Okay. You don't get to run away. In terms of human resources, impact on public safety, some of the work that Human Resources does that's directed toward assuring public safety includes activities that are, this is hard to read, I know, I'm sorry, but activities related to assuring the recruitment, hiring, and retention of highly skilled public safety personnel, activities that assure public safety and other employees meet the needed requirements and qualifications and have background checks and backgrounds that are consistent with providing service to the general public and all populations with limited or no risk, providing initial and ongoing learning and developing opportunities to increase safety, IQ, and safety skills, addressing performance concerns to assure accountability and compliance with laws and regulations, to assure that we have a safe working environment and with the highest integrity, and programs and training to assure the physical, emotional, and brain health and well-being of city staff. So I get to be Kelly Larson with regard to the professional development slide tonight. Kelly is the development learning manager for the city, and her work has focused on new employee orientation and new supervisor orientation. There's been a revised format based on feedback and conversations with department managers as well as employee focus groups. We added to the new supervisor orientation sessions on culture change work, emotional intelligence, cultural competency, and high-performing government. The job shadowing and mentoring that rolled out January 1st, I alluded to in a prior slide. Universal competencies also I alluded to in the highlight slide. The learning challenges, those details were in the highlighted slide. Our tuition reimbursement or assistance program served 16 participants during this fiscal year. They're working on degrees and certificates ranging from building construction and construction equipment operator to fire science administration to human resources to masters in communication. If you'll indulge me, here's what one of our fire lieutenants who is working on his bachelor's degree had to say. The city's tuition reimbursement program has allowed me to pursue an advanced degree while working full-time. The courses I'm taking are directly applicable to my job, helping me grow both personally and professionally. I have developed a greater understanding of the present and future challenges the fire department faces and how we can overcome them. I'm grateful for the city's investment in my future and excited about the new opportunities ahead. I believe the success of an organization is dependent upon its own investment in their employees. And just a reminder, there's a recommended improvement package that we double our current budget of $25,000 annually in support of the tuition reimbursement or assistance program. Talked about crucial conversations, training in the highlight slide. We've provided sexual harassment prevention training to non-supervisors, and we've trained approximately 400 city employees to date, and we'll have a special training to the police department coming up here later this spring. And then Kelly's responsible for ongoing communication staff through that weekly webinar. She's the one who schedules and sets that up and creates the agenda. It was revised from being held on Wednesdays at noon to Wednesdays at 10 a.m., again, based on employee survey results. She also puts the HR component within the Spirit Times, which is sent out with everyone's pay voucher on a biweekly basis. And then she also provides communication through all employee emails. I want to end the portion of the presentation that I'm presenting by sharing a testimonial about an employee's professional development here at the city. The employee writes, "Life is changing for the administrative support staff in the city. Just in the last 3 months, I attended an all-day de-escalation training, was invited to serve on an interview team, and completed 5 NeoGov courses on lawful interviews and bias, joined and am active in an Administrative Allies employee resource group. I got to listen to some very impressive speakers about bias, equity, self-care, inclusion, and communication. The opportunity to participate was never offered or allowed before the wave of culture change. Greatly appreciated. It makes you feel valued. I have the distinct pleasure now of handing the presentation baton over to Kristen Dietz and Amanda Kopis.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Kristen Dietz, and I am the Talent Acquisition Diversity Coordinator with the Human Resources Department. If you remember this time last year, we had just announced that I would be joining the amazing team behind me after being with the Parks and Recreation Department and Marie Ware for over 5 years. And tonight I get to talk about some of the exciting accomplishments in the last 11 months in my role. As you know, my primary role is to use an intercultural approach to perform work in assessing, developing, implementing, and coordinating inclusive and equitable employee recruitment and hiring processes and activities. Interview preparation is vital for effectively evaluating qualified candidates, promoting the City of Dubuque brand, providing equitable interviewing practices, and enhancing candidate experience. It involves crafting questions, understanding candidates, preparing responses, coordinating with interviewers, managing time, skills, and so many other factors. Collaboratively with some key city leaders, I created a resource guide to assist hiring managers with questions we should be asking, along with the answers or key terms we should be looking for in responses. The areas being evaluated include, but are not limited to, the City of Dubuque Universal Core Competencies, which is going to be that collaboration, positive impact, communication, service excellence, and I also incorporated emotional intelligence, or EQ. Each universal competency has 4 skill set levels depending on the entry level of the position. We have continued our mandatory 2-part hiring and interview panel training. I have been working on standardizing the recruitment process, and part of this is redacting applications to create a level playing field for all candidates. All personal identifying information is removed from materials prior to our hiring managers receiving them. This is a way to ensure fairness, reduce bias, and focuses on the qualifications and skills that truly matter for each position. I've had the opportunity to attend a number of job and career fairs in the tri-state area. My most recent one was last week on Wednesday. This was the Access Dubuque Spring Job Fair hosted by GDDC at the Grand River Center. We had over 65 employers and spoke with hundreds of potential candidates and community members. We have also continued implementing diverse interview panels and incorporating outside perspectives to be a part of our process. Something exciting to share is that I will be presenting with Assistant City Manager Corey Burbach and Public Works Director Ariel Swift on Friday at the ICMA conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We will be presenting a Dress for Success, Mapping Talent into Triumph. Our session overview shares, success in hiring isn't about filling positions, it's about strategically aligning every step with our organization's vision and values. By setting clear objectives, crafting compelling job descriptions, and sourcing talent with precision, you pave the way for excellence. Rigorous screening and skillful interviewing ensure you select the right fit, while a seamless onboarding process transforms new hires into high performers. Measure your success with key metrics, gather feedback, and continuously refine your approach. Remember, each hire is a building block towards your organization's future, so make every decision count. Let's map this talent into triumph and elevate our hiring process to new heights. I'm looking forward to this. I have been able to connect with community members and partners and collaborate with different groups. Recently, I was asked to speak with students of the Bridge program at University of Dubuque. The Bridge program seeks to empower and equip individuals to fulfill their true potential by helping them bridge the gaps that may exist in their preparation for college. I was able to share my story, talk about recruitment and hiring within the City of Dubuque. I will be joining the group again to provide feedback and responses in professional interviews at the end of this month. Something incredibly exciting that I recently wrapped up was the engineering department's restructuring that included tier positions and succession planning. The engineering department's organizational structure has not been looked at in over 30 years. I spent about 5 months working closely with City Engineer Gus Sahoyas, Civil Engineers Nate Kiefer, Maxwell O'Brien, and Nathan Steffen on redeveloping their job descriptions, creating upward mobility within the department, and redefining departmental success. Tiered positions create a clear pathway for advancement, allowing staff to visualize their career progression. Employees can start in a lower tier position and gradually move up as they gain experience, acquire new skills, and demonstrate leadership potential. This structure fosters a sense of accomplishment and motivation to improve performance. Also, with the development of a project supervisor role, this creates additional upward mobility within the department and removes potential barriers of not obtaining certifications or earning higher education for the civil engineer or project manager career pathway. This also connects to succession planning and upskilling of our current staff members. This was a huge project for the department and for the City of Dubuque. This is related to attracting highly qualified, diverse talent, employee development, long-term retention, and overall positive organizational culture. This focuses on the City Council's high priority of workforce retention and attraction. I also wanted to provide a special thank you to CFO Jennifer Larson and Budget Manager Laura Bendorf for their guidance and support throughout this process. Lastly, I have lots of creative ideas and potential process improvements that I will be looking forward to implementing over the next fiscal year and to share with everyone next year. Next, I will be turning over to Human Resources Employment Specialist Amanda Kopis.
Hello, I'm Amanda Kopis. I'm the Employment Specialist within the Human Resources Department. My main function within the HR department is I work with the departments to create conditional job offers and then work with the candidates to complete all pre-boarding contingencies and paperwork. This past year, I focused on areas that I noticed had the potential for further development, all of which required cross-departmental collaboration to achieve a common goal, which was to improve consistency, efficiency, and safety. Within this pre-boarding slide, I wanted to highlight a couple of our ongoing accomplishments. The first item I wanted to highlight was the development of a pre-employment contingency checklist to ensure all job descriptions and conditional job offers consistently and accurately describe the requirements of the position. Streamline the process for performing annual driving record checks and clearinghouse inquiries. I facilitated the creation of a workflow to ensure that sensitive pre-employment results are handled confidentially and are compliant with laws and regulations. The final item I wanted to highlight is we performed a root cause analysis of the Park and Recreation Department temporary employee hiring process just to improve efficiency. The temporary employee hiring process within the Park and Recreation Department is essential for maintaining the efficiency and operation of various programs and services throughout the city. Last year, approximately 255 temporary hires were processed, which reflects the significant volume and importance of these positions to the department's overall function. However, we saw that there was an opportunity to improve the efficiency of the process, which could lead to faster hiring, better alignment with departmental needs, and improved satisfaction for candidates, employees, and management. This, again, focuses on your high priority of workforce retention and attraction. Improving the efficiency of the temporary hiring process will not only help the Park and Recreation Department meet staffing needs more effectively, but will also contribute to and enhance service delivery for our community. As of today, the hiring supervisors have submitted 129 candidates for hire. 64 of those candidates are already fully completed, either working or ready to work, which is really good for this time of the year. 38 are working with me currently to complete all pre-employment contingencies. 26 will be receiving conditional job offers within the next week or so. And then only one so far has declined, which is fairly good as well. These numbers obviously will continue to grow and shift as we continue into the hiring season. Thank you all for your time, and I'm gonna turn it back to Kristen, who will break down the Park and Recreation applicant data. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. A little shout out to Amanda. She does all of the pre-boarding by herself on a part-time basis. She truly is an amazing worker, and I don't know what I would do without her. As Employment Specialist Amanda Kopis has shared, we have processed a ton of temporary hires in the last year and have continued to do so while evaluating our systems. We are currently on track to fill all of our temporary positions for the upcoming summer. We currently have almost 900 applications in the system and are on track to receive approximately 1,300 for these positions. I am happy to share that we are back above pre-pandemic application numbers. With how numbers are looking, we will happily open all areas of the Park and Recreation upcoming season. I am actively collaborating closely with Chief Jeremy Jensen and Captain Scott Baxter to develop and implement innovative recruitment strategies for the police department. Our focus is identifying and removing barriers within the civil service exam and the National Police Selection Test, also known as post-test, process to ensure greater accessibility, inclusivity, and fairness in attracting a diverse pool of qualified candidates. This is related to City Council's top priority of police department staffing and hiring. Additionally, this past fiscal year, the police department was able to establish a real-time crime center. Part of this development was reassigning 5 sworn positions to non-sworn positions. We developed job descriptions that included 3 police center technicians, a crime analysis, a criminal forensics position. We have been able to post and fill all but one of these positions. Some of the statistical data points of our candidates this past fiscal year included 155 applications. 80% were males, 20% females, with a demographic breakdown of 68% white, 17% black, 9% Hispanic, 3% Asian or Pacific Islander, and 1% American Indian, 2% for other or do not wish to disclose. Some exciting news about applications is we are finally back to our pre-COVID application numbers. We saw a significant decline during COVID and coming out of it with the number of applications we would receive. Not only are we above total applications received pre-COVID, but we also see a consistent increase in different demographics applying for our positions. Just this past fiscal year, we saw an increase of 227. We also ask a variety of questions on our applications, such as veteran status, gender, age group, education level, and several other areas. This is a new slide for this year, but I thought it was important to highlight. We have veterans preference in the city of Dubuque, and essentially this gives preference or priority to eligible veterans when applying for our positions. We have seen a consistent increase of these applications year to year, and this past year we saw an increase of 51%. This is another new slide for this year. I wanted to highlight some additional demographics of our applications. We have seen a shift from more female applications to receiving more male applications over the last fiscal year, but we did see an increase by 122% of non-binary applicants that we have received from FY23 to FY24. We recently have been transitioning the software that houses our employees and new hire demographics, so there are some discrepancies and identified gaps. We are hopeful that a new human resources information system, also known as a HRIS, will assist with cleaning up this information over the next several years to present to you all. A big part of human resources is providing resources to our employees. We have a total of 814 employees. This includes full-time and year-round part-time in the city of Dubuque, with a breakdown of 64% males, 36% females. In the last fiscal year, we processed 210 vacancies, 3,974 applications, and 155 civil service applications. Next, I will be turning it over to Employee Relations Manager, Robin Hush.
Thank you, Kristen, and good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh and City Council members. So there's been a lot of good things happening in the employee relations realm this past year, but I have to be transparent and give that recognition to Ms. Stickford, as it's been under her accomplishments, as I've not been in this role yet 4 months. So I'm still trying to get my feet wet here. So, and I do appreciate Ms. Stickford also covering a lot of things that are already directly related with employee relations management. So I get a really short speech tonight, so I'm really happy for that. But one of the biggest changes that you probably have already heard is, and probably from CMO's presentation, is the and it directly relates to employee relations, is the introduction of emotional intelligence, or EQ, to the city manager's management philosophy, and basically everything that we do here at the city. And so there's going to be a lot of exciting changes coming forward with this, and that could be in the realm of assessments, coaching, training, facilitation, and lots of other things coming down our way. But we are actually going to be incorporating the VITAL assessment, so not to be confused with VITAL, that I think you all are aware, and this is through 6 seconds. And this will actually start giving us some concrete data to act upon. And so this is going to give us a better sense of EQ and culture and where we're at in the city, and it's going to give us more concrete data to drive forward instead of us just, guessing at what we think are the root issues at play. So a lot of excitement to come with that one. We're really excited to see what that assessment has yet to bring for us. And so in relation to EQ, we continue to infuse vital concepts that were brought forth to department managers and the leadership team. And so there's continued coaching opportunities and training in corporations, which helps employees better navigate their emotions, do deep dives into workplace culture, understand what the me work is and what the we work is, and also foster courage to propel employees forward to creating the change they want to see. And so there's a lot more to come yet with VITAL and this EQ and VITAL. So really excited to be able to tell you all about that as we get more data. And as they relate to employee relations, we always try to report out on workplace culture audits and investigations and complaints. So this past year, Ms. Stickford has been involved in 4 different workplace culture audits. She has had 12 investigations as well this past year, 7 grievances, and 15 was the number of times that she reached out to the care team for assistance. And so again, it's been a very, very busy past year for her and the HR staff. And then another general but important piece that's part of employee relations is interpreting the the employee handbook. So conversations do continue to be held for interpretations of the handbook and to make sure that what we need to do on our end to have updates that better align with the practices and ensure fairness across the city. And so I'll be around if anybody has questions specific to me, but other than that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mackenzie Capacious to talk about benefits and compensation. So thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Good evening, all. As Robin mentioned, my name is Mackenzie Capacious, the Payroll and Benefits Specialist. In FY25, the HR team continued to expand our education and communication to city employees and retirees, informing in multiple ways about the many benefits the city offers. We communicate through email as well as monthly on the All Employee Wednesday webinar presenting a benefits topic. Also, we share benefit updates and reminders about key deadlines through the employee newsletter. We expanded our in-person presence for open enrollment. We hosted 3 in-person meetings, and those were open to all employees and their spouses. These meetings were held at a variety of locations and at times that worked well for employees' schedules. We met with departments to understand the most efficient way to connect with their employees. We traveled to each fire station to connect with each member of the fire department. For the police department and emergency communications center, the best fit for their needs were on-site visits at the Dubuque Law Enforcement Center where employees could stop in and ask questions. We began to offer office hours at various locations. These are times when a member of the HR team visits a city location and employees can stop by with benefit or other questions. We have received great feedback from employees and plan to expand the locations where office hours are held in FY26. New this year was a benefits fair as part of the employee recognition event in May. Employees had the opportunity to meet with benefit vendors from Wellmark, RX Benefits, Delta Dental, several of the local colleges, and more. It was rewarding to see employees engaging with these vendors, and the vendors were impressed by the number of employees that stopped by to ask questions. The benefits fair will be a regular addition to the recognition event. Representatives from our 457 Record Keeper, Mission Square, and MFPRSI also had regular in-person visits with our employees. In addition, in January, we started a benefits overview at monthly new employee orientation events. Also in FY25, we expanded our communication regarding the medical retiree coverage. Eligible retirees can remain on the city's medical plan until they're Medicare eligible. The retiree pays 100% of the cost of the medical plan premiums. The retiree must be covered under the medical plan at time of retirement. Spouse, domestic partner, and dependents at the time of employee's retirement are also allowed to remain on the plan. This benefit is not new. However, because the policy outlining eligibility and additional details were to be added to the employee handbook, we offered meetings to review this benefit with employees who may be eligible for it now or in the near future. We also sent the updated policy to retirees on the medical plan so they have a better understanding about this important benefit. Next, Connie Palm, the Benefits and Compensation Manager, will talk about the collaboration with risk management and the classification and compensation study.
Good evening. Connie Palm, Benefit and Compensation Manager. In FY25, we continued the collaboration between HR and risk management to assess and make improvements with the city's risk management policies and procedures. One key outcome of this collaboration was the establishment of a return to work program for our injured workers. This program helps employees stay engaged. We want the employee to come back if they're injured. We don't want to have to go find another one. And it also helps with our R, or risk factor, which helps drive down our workers' compensation costs. As city workforce retention and attraction has been one of the council's recent top priorities, and is a 2024-2026 high priority. Several projects that you've heard about align with that work. The next few slides are going to focus on employee compensation, in particular the classification and compensation study that was conducted this year. It is a best practice for organizations to regularly evaluate position classifications, compensation plans, pay structures, and how organizations compare to similar organizations. Completing a classification and compensation study was identified as a key milestone that would help with the top priority of city workforce retention and attraction during 2022 goal setting. It is noteworthy that a study like this has not been conducted at the City of Dubuque for over 30 years. In 2023, Carlson Detman Consulting, now known as Cottingham and Butler Total Rewards Consulting, was hired to complete the study. And joining us on the phone this evening is Matt Shefchik, and he is the Assistant Vice President with Cottingham and Butler Total Rewards. He will be available for questions, just as I will when we finish our remarks. CMB Total Rewards Consulting supports both private sector and public sector employers to develop the appropriate compensation plan for the specific organization that they're working with. They take into consideration marketplace considerations, regulatory, organizational, cultural, and other internal and external requirements. They led us through an analytical process that defined a compensation program that supports the city's objectives, created internal pay equity, maintain external competitiveness, and controlled costs. With the length of time given to complete the study and the many factors involved in creating the implementation plan, I think it's important to recap the key project milestones over the last fiscal year. In the summer of 2023, the city began an interactive process to create and update job documentation. Positions in operating engineers, police, and fire, collective bargaining agreements were prioritized to be reviewed first in this process. Then in January and February 2024, operating engineers, police, and fire collective bargaining was completed, and we had union contracts signed and implemented with the recommendations from the data provided from the classification and compensation study. In April and May, pardon me, we used a collaborative process with Cottingham and Butler and city leadership, and we finalized the results of the study. The city drafted its first compensation philosophy, and if you're not familiar with what a compensation philosophy is, it's a formal statement that documents the city's position regarding employee compensation. Said another way, it explains the why behind employee compensation. It creates a framework for consistency, and it can be used to attract, retain, and motivate employees. A compensation strategy was also established. And these two terms can sound similar, so let's spend just a minute on what a strategy is. A compensation strategy, is an employer's response to how it wants to position itself in a labor market. Does the employer want to lead, lag, or match the market? The city has chosen the match the market strategy. We don't intend to lead. Leading is often a strategy used by organizations that want to pay more and offer not very many, if any, employee benefits. Lagging is often used by organizations to attract talent based on factors other than or in addition to compensation, such as belief in the mission. Our consultant had informed us that approximately 85% of the firms they work with choose the match the market strategy. With our strategy to match the market compensation and the city's robust benefit package, we believe our total rewards framework uniquely positions the city to attract and retain top talent. In June and July, department managers and supervisors received an update on the results of the study and the initial plans for implementation. In addition, non-bargaining unit employees and employees represented by Teamsters, bus, and mixed had the opportunity to participate in information sessions. Information shared at those sessions included the comparable cities that were used in the study, the factors used to determine if an employer was comparable, and the sources used for market review to assess external competitiveness in pay. Employees were also introduced to the objective 5-point evaluation process that was used to evaluate positions. They received the compensation philosophy and information about the match the market strategy. In October 2024 and continuing at this time, using the match the market strategy and in line with the compensation philosophy, an implementation plan was established. The plan included the following information. It had a new wage plan design structure. As with the previous wage plan, the new wage plan has 6 steps, and employees advance to the next step within the pay classification based on the understanding that the employee is satisfactorily performing their job duties and in addition to appropriate time served. We also considered the balance between internal equity and external competitiveness, and each position was placed in a grade on the new wage plan. The results of the position evaluation determined some positions have been more than fairly compensated in the past. These positions were moved to a grade in the new wage plan that resulted in a reduction in pay for that position. Some positions were moved to a grade in the wage plan that resulted in an increase in pay for that position. Then decisions needed to be made regarding how the movement of positions into the new wage plan would impact employee pay. Employees were moved to the closest step that gave an increase. In cases where a current employee was in a position that was moving to a lower pay grade, it was decided that the employee would not experience a pay decrease and the future earning potential shared in their offer letter would be honored. Managers had one-on-one conversations with each non-represented employee and shared a letter that outlined the results of the study and how it would impact that employee's pay specifically. To illustrate the transition to the new wage plan design, slotting positions into the new wage plan, and the impacts to non-represented employees in these positions, a pie chart with employee data as of October 24 is attached. Please know this is a snapshot in time. Employee compensation is always in flux. People are receiving pay increases, moving to new positions, people are leaving, retiring, we have new hires coming and going all the time. A threshold of $1,300 annualized was used to define situations where an employee was competitively compensated. 13% of employees were determined to be competitively compensated. That's represented in the green color on the chart. This means that those employees would receive an increase of less than $1,300 annualized to implement the results of the study and move them to a new pay grade and step. 57%, represented in the purple, of employees would receive an increase greater than $1,300 annualized to implement the results of the study and move the employees to the new pay grade and step. And 30%, represented in the blue, of employees were in a position that would be moved to a pay grade that would result in a reduction in pay for that position. However, as I previously mentioned, the employee would not experience a decrease in pay. Please note that as employees leave these positions, new employees hired into those positions will be hired into the recommended grade for that position. It is important to have a process that will keep the system aligned going forward. Our process will allow for at least 1/3 of all positions to be evaluated every 3 years, so that all positions are evaluated at minimum at least once every 9 years. Additionally, individual positions may be evaluated at time of hire or when there are other circumstances that indicate a significant change in duties has occurred. This is a slide you saw during Jenny and the city manager's presentation on Monday. In addition to the estimated cost of implementation of the study, the city manager is representing a 3% cost of living increase for non-bargaining employees. Pending council approval, we look forward to implementation of the study results with the first full pay period in July 2025. We appreciate the council's support of this project, and Matt and I will be available if you have questions. Now I'm going to turn things over to Kristen, and she is going to review the requested improvement packages.
Thank you, Connie. Don't worry, we're in the final stretch. Got a couple more here for you. For our improvement level packages, we did have 3 recommended, which this year it included additional funding for our tuition reimbursement program, funding to provide crucial conversations training to all city staff, and the City of Dubuque branding supplies for recruitment. For our performance measures, we had a number of areas we're doing well with, and let me backtrack here. We have a number of areas we are doing well with and hitting, while others we have a work in progress. As mentioned earlier, we currently have 36% females and 64% males employees. The percentage of non-white employees is 7.12%. Our time to fill, candidate net promoter score, and quality of hire are all at or above our goal. Under the category of increased employee engagement, I did want to make a note that we have changed a question on our annual employee survey from "My organization communicates effectively with employees" to "I usually feel as informed as I need to be in order to do my job well." The moment you've all been waiting for, I just want to thank all of you one last time on behalf of the Human Resources Department, and we will be around to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, well, first let me just say, Shelley, Angie, Kristen, Amanda, Robin, Mackenzie, and Connie, thank you very much for the presentation. So we are in a public hearing to discuss the Human Resources Fiscal Year 26 budget. Do we have any public input on this? Been waiting for you, Clark.
Had to break up the routine. And I ran out of Iowa State shirts, so. Just some curiosity questions. Maybe this is dating me, but there used to be 7 words you couldn't say on TV. Now the federal government is changing that to 3 words: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And where the federal government is telling departments, you gotta lose that stuff or else you get your funding denied or delayed. I'm wondering, is that trickling down to the city? And the second curiosity question is well, when I worked for the county, this was dealing with law enforcement. When they sent people to get trained at the law enforcement academy, other cities or counties would poach those people so they didn't have to pay for that cost. They offered them a little better salary. I'm just wondering if you pay for tuition, if there's a requirement that that person has to stay in employment for so long, or if they leave early, they have to reimburse some of that, based on a sliding scale. And then just my final comment is it's not just, how should we say, the money part of the compensation. You got to look at the total benefits, health insurance, IPERS, Social Security. It's the total package, not just the wages on that, because I noticed they said that the city's cost for health insurance wasn't increasing, but for those of us who are on Medicare, when we get a premium increase, we pay the whole, cost of that premium increase. So employees need to keep that in mind. If there ever is an increase, the city picks up a large portion of that increase. And that's all I got.
Oh, name and address. I didn't hear it before.
Oh, Clerk Slows, 2925 Burlington Street. I might get a T-shirt with that written on it. So.
Thanks, Clark. Thank you for your comments. All right, I don't see any other members of the public here for public input. Adrian, anything over there? Okay, thank you very much. All right, back to us for discussion. Mr. Reza.
Yes, Ms. Larson, I have a question about page 122. And so, we're talking about benefits here. I noticed that on page 122, employee benefits are 2/3 of what the salary and wages are, where all the other departments tonight are 1/3 or less as far as the relationship between employees' benefits and salary and wages. And the year before, the relationship is 75% of their salary wages is benefits. Well, I mean, there's an additional 75% in addition to the wages. And in actual FY '24, it's 80%. 0.8 is, 562, almost 563,000 in salaries and 450,000 in benefits. I'm just wondering why this department is so different than the others.
Yep. So within the Human Resources Department, they handle the employee dental premiums. So it's paid out of the Human Resources Department, but then it's 100% paid for by employees that sign up for that benefit. So there's an offsetting revenue. So that's why it's actually higher that you're seeing in the employee benefit line, because it shows up in insurance premiums.
It shows up somewhere else in this budget?
It shows up as an expense, but then they also have an offsetting revenue for the payments that employees make
Where
for
would
those
that be?
dental. So there is a revenue report for, it's on page 119. So it's account 47,310. So there's 209,372 of reimbursement, and that's all related to the dental and premiums.
So that's why.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Jones.
Just got to say how impressive it is to get the whole team up to the lectern for us. And what an impressive team. Good luck hanging on to these folks. They're going to be superstars. Already are.
Ms. Farber.
So I have the same question that Clark actually asked about the obligation that accompanies the funding that we share with the employees for education. And of course, now you're asking, it'll be 50,000 this year for education for these employees. So could someone explain to us what the obligations are for helping with education? It's the reimbursement program is what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay.
Shelley Stickford, Chief Human Resources Officer. I don't have the policy in front of me, but in order to be eligible, they have to have been employed with the city in a full-time capacity for a period of time. And then they submit an application that's reviewed by Kelly Larson's Education and Tuition Assistance Committee. And they have to fill out information in terms of what they're pursuing, how does it tie to their current job, or promotional opportunity with a position within the city, and then the maximum amount that we reimburse is within the IRS guidelines. And if they're approved, they have to meet a certain grade, and then the tuition assistance is provided to them through pay.
But is there an obligation for them to continue their employment or something tied to the employment? In other words, they don't necessarily get the reimbursement and then walk out the door the next day to another position somewhere else?
No, because the maximum that we're allowed to provide to them on an annual basis is $4,500. So it's sort of de minimis if they were to leave in 6 months or 7 months. So no.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to expand on that answer.
Yes, please, Mike.
So I think Clark also referenced the police academy. And while I don't know the exact formula that we use, I do believe that in the police department, we do have a reimbursement requirement if they leave within so many years. And I don't know, Shelley, do you know that?
Shelley Stickford, Chief Human Resources Officer. I don't know the percentage. It's not part of the tuition assistance program. It's part of the reimbursement within the collectively bargained for agreement, as well as their attendance at the academy. And it is a certain percentage based on the number of years of service, and they have to serve 5 years before they would be 100% compensated, and there wouldn't be an expectation that they would reimburse the city.
Thank you.
Ms. Buffer.
So, Clark, you brought up a really popular topic here. But as I read through the budget, first, I just want to say you guys gave a great presentation. I'm sorry you had to be the last ones, but you really did a great job. And as we think about the fact that city workforce retention and attraction is everyone's responsibility, a lot of it falls upon you. And so, almost as if you are taking on a single goal and priority for us, I just want to thank you for doing it because we feel very passionate about it. I'm not going to make you come to goal setting and hear about how we talk about this goal, but we really talked a lot about how important it is to our community to do this work. So know that you're that community work. I originally thought that I would like to propose holding this for further discussion and consideration simply because I would like to review the policy on the HR 2 of 8 that we're speaking about related to education reimbursement. And a couple reasons, not because I have a problem with education reimbursement. I just want to be very transparent about that. A couple of things, though, would be that I want to further understand the selection process. I'm a little to double funding when it only goes to a very small amount, a small number of employees when we have hundreds. And I thought that it said in here that you could be part-time or full-time. And I'm basing a lot of my understanding, honestly, on hospital reimbursement HR policies, which is my field of work. And so oftentimes, one is you have to pay back the organization if you do not commit so many agreed upon service years to the organization after you are given that money. And so if you leave in the middle of the semester or what have you, you have to pay back whatever you've been given. And usually it's front-ended, and then you get the other part after you complete the program. But you would have to reimburse that front end. The other thing is that making sure that if the residents of Dubuque are paying to further someone's education, and you gave great examples of how we have done that in meaningful ways for employees who it sounds like are really happy with their experience, I want to make sure that that's consistent and required by the policy. So for instance, in a hospital setting, actually somebody who was a nurse went on to get a pilot's license because at the hospital we needed a fixed wing transport vehicle. And so that was an appropriate use of tuition reimbursement because it truly did go to somebody who then could work within the organization in a new role, brand new to what they're doing, but a new role. And we have so many opportunities for that. The concern I have, though, is that we have so many employees, and what happens if 50 people come to you next year? Are you going to come and ask for $25,000 more? Because I feel like we've got to create a space in which there's some equity in how we disperse this money, just in looking into the future. Not because I have a problem with the program as it stands. I want to know more about it. But for instance, in hospital settings, every single employee is offered a standard amount, and it's their choice if they take it, whereas there's a almost application interview process, and only so many people can be chosen. I'm just not sure how I feel about that, and I feel like maybe reviewing the policy would help me to understand it better. And so, again, I would just ask feedback from my colleagues about holding this specific item for further discussion and consideration in the future. Thank you.
Do you mind if I make a comment about that?
Please.
Kristen Dietz, Talent Acquisition Diversity Coordinator. So I've been employed with the city since February of 2019. I've actually had the privilege of being a part of the tuition reimbursement program since fall of 2019. And ideally, the process that I had to follow at that time is I had to actually draft an essay how the tuition reimbursement would then make my job better and how I'm able to use it. And I went through the process for my associate's degree. I was able to get that and complete it in 2022. I'm currently wrapping up my bachelor's right now, and I'm still using the tuition reimbursement program. I had to submit another essay in relation to why the bachelor's degree would then assist me. And I'll have my bachelor's degree in human resource management in July, which is super exciting. And I actually submitted another application for the master's program in communication and how it's in relation to my position as a whole. And from my understanding, there is a review process that our applications and our essays are reviewed by a peer team within the city of Dubuque. And there's different individuals from different departments that evaluate what we propose. So ideally, you can't just submit, I want to get reimbursed for my education because I want to go be a dog groomer. Ideally, it has to be related to what your career goals are and in relation to it. And then based on the reimbursement process, I have to show that, number one, I paid my tuition for that semester. I then submit my grades with it. If I have a grade of B or higher, I get 50% tuition reimbursement up to what the minimum is, whatever that might be. If I get a C, I get 25%. Anything below a C, I do not get any reimbursement for it. So there is some limitations with it. I just know a little bit because I actually participate, and I'm very grateful for the program that we have, but hopefully that helps out a little bit.
It does. Thank you.
Yes.
I have nothing against people furthering their education at the city. We are spending, as we talked about, the study that we are implementing related to funding people that work for our city at an appropriate wage. That, to me, is our biggest investment we can make in our people, as you said. This is just a small amount of people. And if, as I said, 50 people apply to do what you did, which I would fully support them doing, there's not a way to evenly spread that out amongst 50 people without you coming back to us next year and asking for more money. And I'm not criticizing you for it. I think it's great. You're doing what you need to do for the policy. But I think I would like to review the policy so that I can understand if I am concerned with it, what my concerns are, to more transparently know. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Since we've been asked to weigh in on this, I have confidence that the city manager, city staff, the Human Relations Department can answer and be just in this program. I don't think we need to get into the weeds necessarily on every department, how they do everything they do. So I would not want to hold this for further consideration.
And I'm kind of sitting in the middle. I think because I get your question, Ms. Wethel, and I appreciate it. I think it's a good one to ask, when we have something like this that's presented. But as you were talking through it, and Kristen, as you gave some explanation, I think I'm trying to think about what our role is here, in this. And our first job was we set a goal of employee retention and attraction, and there are a lot of things that go into that. The second thing is to fund that. That's our decision. So that's the question that you're asking here, is how do we fund that particular goal? And in a moment like this, with a benefit in this way, while I get your point that it's there is an equity question here of being able to provide it to as many people who would actually want it. And yeah, we very well may get a request next year that we want more money to be able to do this. And we may decide that that's a good idea, potentially, because frankly speaking, I do think this is a really good benefit for people, but it's not that much of a benefit, honestly. I mean, as you said, it's something. It provides you with some sort of tuition to be able to go, but at the same time, it's not a ton. But it's still there. It's still something that's offered in conjunction with other benefits that we do have. And in the net property tax cost of $5,735 altogether to be able to do this, I don't think I necessarily have enough concern to hold it and say let's review it, and then and dig in a little bit more into the actual practice side of it. I think from a larger policy standpoint, I think that I'm comfortable making this decision to say yes, let's do this, let's add this, and continue to see how it works. If it becomes problematic for some reason, I think we talk about it, but I guess I don't feel like it's problematic there yet to add another 25,000 to this to be able to do it. So that's kind of where I'm sitting as I sit here with it today. But it's a thought-provoking question for sure. Others, anybody? Yeah, Mr. Sprite.
I mean, I like the program. I like the program. I like the package. I kind of agree with what Ms. Wethel was saying. Is we want to make sure that it's going towards a benefit to their career in the city. I mean, I could agree with we wouldn't want someone to become a pilot that isn't going to be a pilot. That's not going to be a pilot for the city of Dubuque. So somehow, as long as it's going towards something that helps them do their job better, I'm okay with that.
Ms. Farber?
I'm okay with leaving it as it is, too. I think the fact that we're bringing this to their attention in terms of, is there some kind of an obligation that accompanies the tuition reimbursement, I think is the question here. And I really think that, it sounds like for $5,250 per year that we're really getting a great return on this investment. And that the employees are greatly appreciative, and I think Kristen is a good example. And I've known Kristen for a few years, and I'm just very proud of you for taking the steps to initiate your further education, and how pleased I am that the city can help you in that endeavor, and that you are so pleased to work for the city as well. So I am very supportive of what the current policy is, but I think maybe going forward, you might want to consider, is there, based on your experience and other experiences with other tuition reimbursement programs that you know of, what kind of requirement is there, or what kind of an obligation might there be? And it sounds like, ABC, if you, depending upon your grade, there's a requirement there for reasons to be successful in your program, if the money is going in that way, to make sure that the requirements of making sure that it's a worthwhile program for you, and et cetera. So I would be supportive of just, as is, and hopefully taking that to be consideration for the team if indeed there is something to add to that policy based on other data that you have too, because everything is data-driven, I think. So what other people are doing. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
I'm going to suggest a little different path forward here. I agree with the recommendation, and I think we should leave it be. But this might be a good topic for a half-hour work session before a council meeting some night, to educate us on how it works, why it's good. I think something you guys could probably pretty easily put together, given the value and wealth of information that came from you tonight. I think that would resolve any discomfort at the table, and if it doesn't, we've got a budget process coming up in another 11 months. So.
Yeah. Well, my suggestion on top of that would be, if we're going to do it that way, I would want it in a discussion about all the compensation and the full package that we offer to employees. I think it'd be a better discussion than one small piece of it. I mean, because to be fair, this is a tiny slice of the larger picture of what we're offering to our employees. So I think that could be a useful discussion. Please, Connie.
Connie Palm, Benefits and Compensation Manager. One request, that's probably going to be longer than 30 minutes.
We'll keep that in mind from a work session standpoint. Thank you. Yeah, Ms. Russell, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just add that in my previous employer, I took advantage of the tuition reimbursement, getting a BA and an MBA, and I think this is the kind of thing that's not just a benefit, it's an investment. It's an investment in people, and you can really see what you get for that investment. So I would be looking forward to a work session with this included in it, and your story, Kristen, was very, very helpful. Thank you.
All right, so on that subject, I'm not hearing concurrence in holding this.
No, and that's okay. I just want to be clear. I'm not against tuition reimbursement. I don't want anybody to think that. I'm just used to it being a system-wide option for every employee, and in this situation, it's not. To fund that, and I understand $50,000 is $50,000 in a really massive budget, but we're dialing in every $1,000 this year. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but we need to be very thoughtful about every package that is a package changing our budgetary look at every department. And so I'm trying to be practicing due diligence, but also understanding that I question even if this needs to be remodeled into something that is more accessible to all employees. And obviously that would be a much larger investment, but as we look at grossly compensation for our employees, if we really truly value the investment in an employee, maybe we should have something that is more of an investment. And so I want to make sure nobody thinks I'm against educational reimbursement. In fact, I just wanted to learn more about it by reviewing the policy, and I had requested it before the work session, so just so you know, I didn't receive it. It's not because I just came out of the blue with this. I just wanted more information and didn't get it beforehand. So that would be just my closing remarks upon it. And so I am very comfortable if no one is in concurrence with me to review it further. We'll just move on.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Wethel.
Yeah, just one other comment. We're really relatively new at this. I left full-time employment with the city 20 years ago and wasn't really there then. And it seems like that was just a couple weeks ago. But we're easing into this thing. We're improving the program this year by adding some dollars to it. So I'm not uncomfortable with the direction we're headed. And I'm not uncomfortable at all with the thought that make it as wide as we can. But for right now, it sounds like a pretty good program and some pretty good checks and balances to write a good essay to get consideration of a peer group. I can't think of a fairer way to advance an employee's interests than through selling their peers on the need.
All right. Well, I'll wrap up with a couple things. I don't think I have any further questions, but thank you very much for the presentation. I agree. It's always great to hear from so many of you in the work that you do from your perspective. I think that that's helpful, not just for us, but for members of the public to be able to hear that. So thank you. You have done a lot in the last year or two. I mean, this has been, and as you said, Shelley, this is the first time in your 5-year period here that this is a full staff. Which is pretty incredible because there has been a lot of work done on this front, on the human resources front in that 5-year period. I mean, it has been a lot. We've watched it from our perspective. We've talked about the challenges. We've talked about the successes. We clearly have set it as a goal for the last 2 years to say that this is one of the most important things we have, and we've talked about that tonight in the foundation that we're trying to put together here. So thank you for all of it. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm hearing some really good things about how this work is going and the process that you're using to get it done. And there were bits and pieces of it throughout each presentation tonight in a lot of ways, and I think we're going to hear a lot about that and how employees are being engaged in each department. It's new and it's different, and I understand that it's challenging at times. Not everything has been roses and kumbaya around a campfire. It's been some challenging discussions, I think, as employees to work through some of these new ways of doing business as the city of Dubuque. But it sure seems like it's going very well. I'm hearing really good things about this, and we're going to continue to hear good things about this. I'm going to address Clark's question about the DEI thing, because this is going to come up. This is people are talking about this, and we are going to. I mean, we're hearing this from the Iowa legislature. We're hearing it from Congress. We're hearing it from from President Trump. We're having this discussion about DEI. So I'm just going to say it flatly, and then we can go from here. And I'm sure we'll have more discussions about it. I'm just going to say this personally. I have yet to have anybody show me any evidence that there's something wrong with diversity, or that there's something wrong with equity, or that there's something wrong with inclusion. What I do hear is evidence that people are conflating DEI with discrimination. And I'm not hearing from the presentation tonight that we have a problem with discriminating against employees or discriminating against people in hiring practices. In fact, what I heard tonight was evidence that we go out of our way to make sure that discrimination is not occurring. So I think that's what we need to do. So that's what I'll say to that for now, and I'm sure we'll have more to talk about with that as we go forward. But thank you, everyone, for your discussion tonight. Thank you for the questions, and there is no further business on this agenda, so we'll see everyone here tomorrow night. Have a great night.